Happy Monday, degenerates. Welcome on back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. We are headed back to Vegas. We're headed to the UFC Apex. It's UFC Vegas 103 fight week. And oh, baby, do we have a fresh, steaming, hot dumpster to dive into. Happy Cody Brundage fight week to all of those who celebrate. I cannot wait to talk about this card with you guys. It is even grosser and greasier than last week's card, if at all possible. Welcome in, everybody. We got my guy Dream in the chat already hanging out. George Ray Pro, what is going on? We've got Landon Young, Colby Saul, Dixon Sider. He's already asking me for the Cody round one Brundage KO ticket. You know it's coming. You know it's coming, Dixon. A grateful dude in the house. Fighting Stats, Air Dog, MMA Clips, Annoyed Squidward, my man. Caleb Baran, what's going on? David Ramirez, how's everybody doing this week? Ethan Hershey, pay up, baby. Where did you pay up, Ethan? Did I get my shots? Because if memory serves, I had Henry. You had Henry Cejudo, even though I ended up betting the spread on Henry. I had Song for the shot bet. I need to see those shots, my friend, if they weren't already put up there. Groove in the house. Trey, what is up? All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. We're knocking on that door of 100 live viewers already. Do me a favor, hit the like button, retweet, share the show, whatever's going on. Call your mom, let her know her favorite mid-something millennial is live for fight night. So let's get into these fights, you guys. I want to go ahead and just ever so quickly, recap last week's card. This is an event that I really need to do like a full-on talk through recap because my goodness, like so much happened at UFC Seattle. I could not have been more wrong about Rafael Sequeira. I was so excited to fade Modestas Bukauskas that I was willing to put my hard-earned money on just one of the most fraudulent fighters in UFC history, and that's on me. That's on me. I have a tendency to get overzealous about fading people when they get overpriced, and it bit me yet again. We will fade Modestas. We will find the spot. I got to start taking advantage of these spots because I looked straight on past the fact that Sequeira really is just useless because I wanted to fade Modestas so badly. I need to enroll in some kind of therapy to get talked out of doing that. But also, by the way, totally forgot, I have a push-up bet on the line for this one. I am starting the push-up bet trend here. We're going to get in shape because if I'm losing bets, if I'm losing money, if I'm looking like a fool online, I might as well get healthy doing it. So somebody bet me 50 push-ups on this fight, and I owe that 50 push-ups. I'll have to get that done for you guys and get it posted up on social media. Nursultan Rozaboev, though, I tried to warn everybody. Everyone doing the same exact thing that I literally did on Rafael Sequeira. They did it all with Eric McConaughey. I tried to warn you guys. He's a bum. He's not UFC ready, and the UFC just needed to get Nursultan his hand raised. It was always Nursultan by KO. I had him in my parlay. That was nice. I should have just shipped it on Rozaboev by knockout. I really should have. That's a full hindsight bet that, like, it was real easy for me to slide him into a parlay at the end of the week. Even though I'm like his number one non-believer, it was real easy to slot him into a parlay. But I really should have just been like, you know what? I know exactly how this fight's going to go because I did. And I could have hit the KO prop. That would have been juicy. Vanderford, you know what, you guys, UFC Seattle, it's the event of missed opportunities for me because I am trying to be more intentional. I am trying to tighten up a little bit. I'm trying to attack specific spots. And I've been doing really well about that over the last couple of weeks. I dropped a unit, literally one unit at UFC Seattle. So like that's the kind of loss that you can take and brush off, right? But if I had just gone full spam mode, if I had just bet everything on this card, I would have crushed it. Like, I wasn't confident enough in Vanderford. I wasn't really comfortable enough betting against Veretnikov enough that I let this one pass on by me. Pick'em fight. Vandy looked like $1 million. It was obviously the setup fight we kind of thought it might be to get him into the UFC. Grappling was way too on point, way too heavy. He got the dang thing done. Ricky Simone, I owe him an apology. I bet the spread, easiest cash of my life. Should have done my standard 2-unit spread, 1-unit money line sprinkle, right? Like, because if I think it's going to be a spread bet, I might as well take the money line and hope for the full-on upset. KO of the year contender from Ricky Simone put Javid Basharat out cold. It was unreal. Never in my wildest dreams did I think Ricky Simone was going to TKO him like that. I considered just ever so briefly that maybe he could like dominate the wrestling, get on top of him and pound him out. But I was like, that's probably not going to happen. Like it could, but it won't type of thing. So I didn't really ever seriously consider Ricky Simone finish props. For him to come out and just nuke him in the first round that way, ridiculous. Mansour did the damn thing. I did bite live on Nick Klein because I thought the deeper this fight went, maybe Klein's wrestling would take over. It would wear down the gas of Mansour. Obviously, the guy's just going to be a flat-out problem. So that didn't work out, but it was only a half-unit shot. It was still, he was like plus 400 or something like that when I jumped in on Klein, and that was after having rocked Mansour. So I was like, there's, it's worth a shot. There's a shot. You never know. And then here's the one. I want to talk to you guys about this one. Because a lot of times you guys hear me talk about a value bet that lost. Right? Like we're going to talk about it in just a minute with Walker, right? We're like, we were on the right side when it comes to a betting perspective, even though the bet didn't cash. I feel like I was on the right side not betting this, even though I would have won. I talked all week about being on Marquez Costa. I wanted to bet Costa. The fact that he was the favorite kind of scared me away from it. And watching this fight, Andre Fili was winning the entire first round up until the moment that he wasn't. And just for me, betting-wise, analyst-wise, I don't think laying chalk on Costa makes any sense when everything we saw was him getting his ass whooped. Fili was out striking him. Fili was out grappling him. Fili was landing some big shots. Like, don't get me wrong, Marquez Costa was there. He was in that fight. But he was losing. And so for him to get a miraculous submission, pull it out of his ass, get his hand raised, I couldn't be here like pounding my chest about like, told you, I called it. Like, no, it wouldn't be like that. I'd be like, I was losing up until the point that I wasn't. So like, I actually think that was a good pass, even though I ended up being right about the fight. Now, submission prop plus 700, different story. Like I could have and maybe should have bet the sub prop. So I think that actually was a good pass, even though I would have been correct about it. And similarly, passing on Ibo Aslan as a favorite, thank God for that. I didn't have the nuts to take Ion Kutalaba as an underdog. I know a lot of people did, and congratulations to you guys. I'm actually pretty happy with just being smart enough to steer clear of it because I wasn't comfortable laying that kind of a price tag. My boy Juicebox gets his O taken, continuing the trend of undefeated fighters in the UFC getting their O ripped away from them in 2025. It is the year of the deflowered undefeated fighter, you guys. If you've got an undefeated record, you just should not book a fight in 2025. That's how this works. He really just needed to hit that round 3 takedown. I could not believe Alonzo Minifield, just so big, so strong. He's such a tank. I thought he was going to tip over like a tree, and we were going to get a Julius Walker, ground and pound, 3rd round TKO. Both guys were exhausted. You could tell Walker completely adrenaline dumped in the first round. Like he was completely huffing and puffing after trying to push Alonzo Minifield around like 3 minutes in. To his credit, though, he stayed in the fight. He rolled with shots. He took some big shots. His chin checked out. The willingness to bang checked out. Like, I still am very, very high on Julius Walker. I think this kid is going to be something. I think we need to circle him, and we're going to make money betting on him moving forward. Just didn't pan out for us this weekend. Although split decision being plus 200 money line on the split side of it, that's the side you want to be. Gene Silva, all hail Gene Silva. Nothing else to say. Matsumoto, I thought he won rounds 1 and 2. Rob Font getting the decision was a little sketchy there for me. Anthony Hernandez did the damn thing, winning rounds 2 and 3 based on cardio. Nailed that there. And then I could do an entire breakdown of the main event for you guys. I really could talk for like 2 hours on the main event. So let's not do that. Song Yudong got his hand raised as I kind of initially leaned with the early stoppage. My plus 5.5 spread bet on Henry Cejudo cashed with ease because we didn't finish those final 2 rounds and it was a 29-28 decision. So very, very easy money on the plus 5.5 on Henry Cejudo. And then all the round props pushed. I guess it's book dependent, you guys. So I actually got some money back on that one because I played the Cejudo TKO 3, 4, and 5 props. And the weirdest thing is they actually pushed my round 3. That I don't get. I should have lost round 3 and then pushed rounds 4 and 5 because we never got to see those rounds, but round 3 completed. It's like when you're playing blackjack and they miscount your chips and you get the extra 5, you just shut up. You just don't say anything. You don't tell the dealer, hey, you overpaid me, because the house is going to take your money one way or the other, right? Like they gave me back the round 3 sprinkle. I'll take it. I ain't complaining about getting money back at all. I will take my refund. Thank you very much. All right, guys, that is the UFC Seattle quick and dirty recap. We've got over 200 live people in the house, and they're already calling for this week's guest. My man, Mr. Electrocute, none other than Art himself, joining us to break down UFC Vegas 103. Art, what's going on, my guy? How you doing?
Great, buddy. And thanks for having me, Clint. Excited to top this card off, man. I think there's some really good spots here.
I'm glad to hear that, man. I am looking at this card, and I think I have not bet anything yet, you guys. Usually, sometimes I'll come in with 2 or 3 bets. Sometimes I need to sit back. I'm excited to talk about this card with Art, so I'm sitting back for the moment, and I'll see what we can put together. But yeah, man, I think this is a card we might be able to fire on, believe it or not. So thanks for coming on the show. How did you do at UFC Seattle?
I actually did pretty well. I tried to keep the card very light. My reads, I don't know if they were all there. It was a weird card and stuff, so I tried to stay out of it a little bit. But I ended up 8.7 units on the card.
Beautiful.
Live betting, I had another 7 units live betting. I got that Mansour minus pick 'em. You were talking about the Klein price. I went the other way, right? I had I had up 3 units on Song Yudong. I had fight goes to decision. The Allen fight, I thought that would go to decision as well. I had a big bet on that one. I took John Silva by decision. I thought that, it could have gone a little bit longer, but he starched him right away. Menafield in Walker by KO. I thought that was a great bet, but it ended up losing. Yeah. And I had Austin Vanderford money line. So some pretty good hits there. Yeah. So I hit all the bigger ones. A lot of the sprinkles and the long shots didn't come through, but we're there.
Bro, what a night for long shots. I mean, I own Kutalaba. Sub got home. Rob Font decision got home. You had, Nursultan Razaboev round 2 was a crazy number because he never wins outside of round 1. Let's see. What else?
I had
Alonzo Menafield by decision.
I had Kutalaba to win in the first 3 minutes at plus 1,100.
That's insane. It ended at 251 for
those
of you who don't know.
Close, yeah.
What a buzzer beater. I love it. All right, man. Hopefully we can uncover some gems here this week. One of those cards for me where, like I said, lost 1 unit, dropped a single unit. If you're going to lose, that's how you lose. You know what I mean? I feel like I got a lot right on that card. I feel like my mind is finally kind of syncing up with reality a little bit. So might be time to uncork the big guns and go for the throat here a little bit. Hopefully we find some good stuff here on this card. All right, you guys, let's get into it. First fight of the night, you have got Charles Johnson, and let me get their faces up here. Not sure what happened there. Charles Johnson is taking on Ramazan Temirov, and a lot of very competitive lines here this week, man. We've got a slight plus 105 underdog in Charles Johnson. Looks like he's moving up to about plus 110. So a little bit of movement coming in on Temirov, who is minus 130. Charles Johnson is a guy who's caused a lot of pain to me, man. A lot of pain, because when he first made it to the UFC, I could not stop raving about him. Spectacular striking, great build for the weight class, fantastic cardio, cooks people late. I love when people turn up over the course of the fight and just these cardio machines that decide to take people out back in the 3rd round. and just throw him through the wood chipper. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorite type of fighter to bet on, like Fluffy did this past week, like Marab does every single time he's in the cage. I love betting on cardio, good submission defense, good takedown defense, solid striking. I mean, I like everything there is about Charles Johnson. So he gets to the UFC, and I'm just determined to get in and make some money on this guy. Well, he doesn't quite do as well as I'm expecting when he first gets to the UFC. As you guys know, right? He completely wrecks Jimmy Flick. We've got a 2-fight win streak going on. I am licking my chops, ready to make money on this guy. And then he goes on a 3-fight losing streak. You know, relatively fraudulent split decision loss against Ode Osborne. Run that one back. He wins it every time. Cody Durden, you guys know I've underestimated him forever. Got caught with my pants down there. And then Rafael Esteban. What ended up happening, you know, in hindsight, he's done a lot of interviews and stuff like that. The dude was about as active as he possibly could be, and he was hurt for a lot of it. So a bunch of short notice opportunities, a bunch of not 100% type of situations. And when those situations happen, fighters are not going to fight to their best, right? So I jump off the Charles Johnson train. Now, don't get me wrong, fan of him still, totally respect his skill set, love everything about the guy, but I'm like, all right, maybe I'm too high on Charles Johnson. He takes a little bit of time off, and lo and behold, the man heals up, and here he is on a 4-fight win streak. And it's like, son of him, like, I lost money on him when he has these losses that could have easily been wins. And then I'm losing money on him trying to fade him when he finally gets right. The Josh Van round 3 TKO is one that just could not have shocked me more. I felt like Josh Van was really going to turn up and match pace with Charles Johnson and be the one doing more damage with the body shots. And that one really floored me, that I was like, my goodness, for him to just destroy Van in Van's rounds the way he did. Massive respect for him there in that spot. So now the UFC is going to kind of turn around, and it looks like almost sell on the hype of Charles Johnson at this point. Ramazan Temirov, 28 years old kid from Uzbekistan, and this kid is just recklessly violent. Reckless. He plants his feet, he bites down on the mouthpiece, and he swings heavy. That is all he knows how to do. He has a blatant disregard for his opponent's offense. He made his UFC debut against CJ Vergara, and he just never let CJ off the hook. You know, CJ is known well for being a meme fighter. He's willing to literally like sprint across the cage to wear his opponent out and reset the distance. Honestly, high fight IQ, right? Like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and that's not even cheating. So like, he does whatever it takes for him to get an advantage. And he did that here. Temirov clips him, hurts him, and he just books it. He's like, just let me give some space here. I'm going to run across the cage. Temirov stayed on him and somehow was able to like chase him down and keep pace with him while still cracking him to the body, and eventually got CJ Vergara to just fold over. It was a very impressive debut, very impressive performance. Looks like he's getting some work in over at Team Alpha Male with the Faber's team out there, and there's just not a ton of tape on him outside of round 1. He's one of these guys that destroys people early. Now, I did get one fight where I was able to watch him go a full 15 minutes. And man, I was impressed with everything about him. His speed, his footwork, his hips, the way he defends takedowns. But in the third round of this fight, and this was going up against like an 8-5 guy that would, you know, never last in the UFC. In round 3, he's running for his life. I mean, he's not throwing back. He's kind of like sprawling, and like he'll throw one hook on the way up and then reset the distance, footwork, skip, stay on the outside. Like, he did whatever it took to win that fight. He was not having any type of offense in the third round. And that's the type of thing that has me worried when you're going up against a cardio machine like Charles Johnson. Now, I know Charles Johnson is 34 years old, but he is going to be much taller, and he's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage here in this spot. I expect these guys to bang it out. I really like the youth of Temirov. I like the power of Temirov, and I think I'm going to just ever so slightly lean that way because of the youth, because of the power. But I could really also see Charles Johnson cooking this guy later. Minus 130 for Temirov. I do not believe I'm betting this fight, man. I think it's a coin flip, and I think we're going to learn a lot about Temirov in this fight. This is a step up for him. So very curious what you think of this fight. Curious to see how this one's going to play out. It'll be a real fun fight to watch either way.
I completely agree. And man, Temirov, I really like his style, man. He's so frustrating to fight against. And I picture this. Picture a Street Fighter character. You know how on your controller you have light punch, you have medium punch, you have heavy punch. Temirov is all heavy punch. All he's doing is punching heavy punch. He's putting everything into those shots 100% of the time. He's just power shots all the time, right? You talked about that one fight that he went 3 rounds. I was watching. I was like, there's no way this guy can keep this pace up, but he did. He's throwing power shots. His footwork. He has this style where he's like, it's all I'm going to hit you, but I'm not going to get hit back, right? So he has 18 wins. 11 of them are first round KOs. He's looking to get hit and not get hit. 87% of his strikes are landing at a distance. He's a headhunter at 84%. He's looking to knock your block off, right? 39% head strike accuracy. You know what his head strike defense was? 8%. I think Vergara landed 4 head strikes on him. That's it. He has a way of just moving around. He keeps his footwork. He keeps range where you can't touch him. So and he's moving so fast that you want to hit him. You want to hit him hard. So you sort of plant your feet, you set your heat, and you throw with power. By then he's gone. He's way gone. So he just has a frustrating style where he's in, he's out. It's very hard to get a hold of him. He has very strong hips. So you're in that fight there, you're talking about the 3-round fight. That guy was like sprawling. He's diving across the cage, trying to get a hold of him. He just defends and he just gets back out to space. He just always wants to get in your face and throw power shots. Man, that one fight though, going 3 rounds. He did it for the first 2 rounds. He kept space. He did all these damaging shots. And then during the fight, the lights are going out. There's drums playing in the background. I think the trumpet started playing at one time. It's such a funny fight to watch, but it really just shows his type of style and what he wants to do. Charles Johnson has never seen this type of style before. So, Charles, you talked about Charles Johnson, the way that, what he's known for. He's known for really his durability and his cardio. He just sort of picks up as the fight goes on. But he has sort of this tall man defense. And I know he hasn't been finished, right? I look back to, what was the fight? The Azat Maxim fight. Every time that Azat touched him, he got dropped. He got rocked. He was wobbled like 5 or 6 times. The only way that he came back was Azat tried to put him into like an anaconda choke and gave time to Charles Johnson to recover, right? Temirov is not going to do that. He wants nothing to do with the ground. If you're on the ground, he's going to throw these big shots and stuff, right? He'll continue to pepper you until you're gone, ground and pound, all that stuff. So I think Charles Johnson doesn't have the power to throw back. I think he can land, but he's very hard to hit him, especially clean. I don't think Charles Johnson has the power to put him out round 1. And so I think the power shots of Temirov are going to make a big difference. He might not land them. He just wings overhands. He wings hooks. He's going to miss a lot, but he's also going to hit the guard a lot. And he might hit clean 1 or 2 times. When he hits clean, all he has to do is hit once, and then Johnson is rocked, and that's the round. He will at very least win that round if he doesn't get put out. So I think Temirov wins round 1 at a very high clip if he doesn't finish Charles Johnson. In round 2, the cardio that I saw in that 3-round fight, I think he can rinse and repeat in round 3. In round 2. Still stay on the outside, pick his shots, land those big shots off the guard, rock Charles Johnson a little bit. Charles Johnson's going to land these jabs. It's not going to do a ton of damage. And then really the question comes into round 3, right? So maybe Charles Johnson, that's probably his best round. So the way I'm taking it is I'm taking Temirov on the money line pre-fight. I think you can attack the Charles Johnson line live. I think you might be able to get him like plus 300, plus 400 after round 1. That's if he survives. I'm predicting that he goes out in the first round. I think he gets knocked down at least 1 or 2 times, and he'll get to like plus 300, 400 on the live line. The other way you can also do is Charles Johnson maybe submission rounds 2-3, Charles Johnson KO 2-3, but I don't know if I need to play his money line right now. So I'm on the Temirov side. I think that he just the bigger power shots, if he doesn't find it, at least they will sway the judges in that decision. Again, Charles Johnson doesn't really pull away, right? He's not going to look 500 on the feet, even if he's the better striker. Just Temirov moves so much that he's going to be punching air, right? And an 8% head strike defense is very good. It's elite, where he doesn't take any damage, but he throws big shots. I just think the power dynamic is going to be too much. The visuals of Charles Johnson on the back foot are getting hit or getting rocked. Again, only takes 1. And I think he can do it for at least 2 of the 3 rounds and maybe win a decision. But I think he puts them out of there before it gets to decision.
Wow. Okay. Bold call, man. Talking about the getting the finish here on a guy that's never been put out before. I like it, though. I completely agree. I understand the angle, and yeah, man, that round 3 sprinkle there for Charles Johnson is really always the way to go. But I just think youth is the right way to go. We've seen it time and time again with these mid-tier, guys that are kind of getting their step up in competition versus a guy that's kind of been hanging around, and the UFC's not really giving them their shot. Like, I love Charles Johnson, big fan of his. I think he's going to continue to do well, fun fights, but he has that style where he doesn't necessarily always extend himself. And I think you're right that a couple of big moments can swing the judges. And I think Temirov is fully capable of it with that kind of power that he's got. So glad to hear that we're syncing up early here on this one. No bet for me just yet, but I don't know. After talking it through with you, maybe we'll see. All right, guys, next up, we've got Montana De La Rosa and Luana Dread Carolina. I cannot wait to talk to you about this fight, Art. Me and Art were chatting, you guys, backstage right before we kicked off here. And this was one that we kind of have a little bit circled for us. I cannot wait to get into the nitty-gritty here on this fight. You guys know that I have been a long time Luana Dread Carolina believer, man. She's one of my mangy, greasy dogs. Everyone kind of counted her out early, and she just, through sheer determination and hard work, has turned herself into something here in the UFC. She trains at Nova União, it looks like right now. She's on a 3-fight win streak, and she dropped a split decision to JoJo Woods, so like potentially could be a 4-fight win streak for her. She's got very good footwork. She controls the range well with kicks. She's very light on her feet. Shout out my guy Brandon Olivas. She is the Anderson Silva of women's MMA in this weight class here these days. She really likes to hurt people, man. That's one of my favorite things about Luana. She's got that chip on her shoulder, right? She's got that killer instinct. Even though she's not a huge finisher, you can tell she wants to. You can tell she tries to. She steps on the gas. She goes after people when they're hurt. Her grappling is something that's very much improving. Her defensive grappling improved a bunch, and there's been a couple fights where she's kind of dove on submission attempts and necks and things of that nature. One of these days, I'm gonna hit a submission prop with Luana Carolina. It's gonna happen. Like, this may not be the one, but one of these days it's gonna happen. She averages 4.81 significant strikes per minute, and that is 2 full significant strikes per minute higher than Montana De La Rosa. Luana Carolina is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot. And Luana Carolina taking on De La Rosa, who is 1 year younger, 30 years old. She is on a 3-fight losing streak. Her most recent win coming over a just absolutely worn down Angela Hill, somebody we'll talk a bit about later on. Coming via split decision. Not the most impressive win I think that you could get here in this spot. Honestly, man, my opinion of Montana De La Rosa is not a great one. She's just kind of middle of the road everywhere. The one thing that she does exceptionally well, in my opinion, is her ground and pound. She's got decent wrestling. She's got a great frame for the weight class, but honestly, I think she's a little on the slow side. Her striking, she's still a little stiff. She's still a little robotic and uncomfortable. Like, her grappling really is her forte, and it's just, if she gets on top of you, she will pound your face through the canvas if you give her the opportunity to. I always think back to the Mayra Bueno Silva draw, where it was kind of an ass beating on both sides of the fight, ending up with a 10-8, forcing a draw in that situation. It's like, you can see those flashes, but you haven't seen a lot of that recently. She was on the defense the whole time against Macy Barber. She was submitted by Tatiana Suarez, which no harm, no foul there. I thought that chick was going to win the title, right? But losing to JJ Aldrich, not a great look these days. And then the split decision with Andrea Lee, where if Lee had done anything, man, I did make the move to put my money on Andrea Lee that night. Again, we'll talk about Lee in a little bit, but it would have taken just 2 or 3 combos. Like, round 3 was so bad from both women. I'm screaming, do something, Andrea, at the TV. Like, if she just makes any offense whatsoever in that 3rd round, I think she wins that fight. It was close. It was greasy. It was bad. So I'm kind of feeling like Montana De La Rosa is trending the wrong direction rather than trending the right direction. When she first got signed by the UFC, I thought she had a lot of very serious potential. She rattled off 3 submission finishes right out the gates. We had, just kind of a big swing up for her. And I know they threw her to the end, the deep end of the division, taking on people like Vivi and Mayra Bueno Silva and Macy Barber. But again, it's trending the wrong way for me. Even though she's young, you might want to say you could expect improvements, but visually, I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any improvements. So I like Luana Carolina in this spot, man. And it's also very, very solid price here, -135, +115 to come back on Montana De La Rosa, greasy women's MMA. So I thought about betting Luana Carolina. And then I thought about my Rafael Sequeira bet last week and just went, I don't need to do this. Like, I think Luana's gonna win. I'm gonna pick her to win. I'll be sad if she wins a split decision, and I could have banked a unit or two on her. But I think this is exactly the type of fight that I can learn to avoid moving forward. What do you think about this fight, Art? What's going on this side, man?
I'm in the same boat. I had like this addiction to betting low-level women's MMA for a while.
Every time.
I've trying to get away from it, but just sometimes it can be unpredictable. But they don't have any power in their hands, so it's a little bit easier, So that's what I think we're gonna get here, and I'll talk about that in a bit. What I'm gonna start with the De La Rosa side. You talked about the improvement. So I first went back and watched the first Andrea Lee fight back in 2019. De La Rosa coming in, she's pretty one-dimensional in that fight, just really a wrestler. She really needed the takedown to really have a chance. She didn't have any power in her strikes. So she couldn't get the decision, or she couldn't get the takedown, ended up losing a decision. And then so she refights Andrea Lee 5 years later. Obviously, Andrea Lee slowed down a little bit, right? But in terms of the striking that I saw from Montana De La Rosa, it's improved from what it was before. She's a little bit more confident on the feet, a little bit more pop in her step, a little bit faster hands, so she can strike a little bit better than what she can do before. It's not great. It's not it's not world beater. She's average, like you said, but she's improved in the striking, and she's always had the grappling sort of in her back pocket, right? So you talked about the strength of schedule. She's fought some of the top tier women in that division. I think those same women would have beat Luana Carolina as well. She just gets bullied a little bit by Barber, by Suarez was a favorite against Zhang Wei Li, right? So those wins are understandable. The JJ Aldrich loss was the one that was a head scratcher for me, because Montana De Rosa is supposed to be a grappler, and she comes out, she doesn't even shoot a takedown until round number 3, and then gets it when she's already down 2 rounds. So they talked about how like they were training partners, and maybe De La Rosa knew that she couldn't get her down or hold her down or whatever it was, but she didn't pull out the grappling until round number 3, and that frustrates me because I'd like to see it a little bit earlier, right? So she does have some of that fight IQ that I worry about, but she does have that grappling in their back pocket, right? And so I move on to Luana Santos, right? She's a Thai kickboxer by trade, right? Long, lanky by the division. You talked about Anderson Silva, right? She's actually number 7 in the UFC flyweight division for top 7, 50% significant strike accuracy, number 10 in striking differential. And I think her takedown defense is up there as well. So she wants to stay on the outside. She wants to strike. She has 69% distance striking, 24% in the clinch. Her head strike accuracy is pretty good at 38%, and her head strike defense is not bad at 37%. Her striking output does increase as the rounds go on, landing 17 in round 1, 24 in round 2, and 27 in round 3. She has good striking, but not a lot of power in her hands. She's a lot of kicks. She's that Muay Thai narrow stance footwork. She's throwing a lot of knees up the middle, high kicks, low kicks, things like that. So that's important in that fight, because she's throwing all these kicks. She has like this tendency to try to counter you when you come in close, because she's so tall. She wants to throw that knee up the middle to try to counter, but it sort of gives opponents the knees and the kicks and stuff, right? She has a very bad tendency to throw these kicks, and her kicks are pretty slow, where she's throwing the kicks and they get caught. But she's fighting somebody like Molly McCann, who doesn't want to get her down to the ground. She's fighting somebody like Joanne Wood that doesn't want to get down to the ground. She's getting these kicks caught, but they're just letting them go. Against somebody like De La Rosa, you throw one of those kicks, she's going to take that leg, she's going to put you down on your butt, and then she's going to work that ground and pound. All it takes is one takedown for Montana De La Rosa. So I go back and I watch Luana Carolina. Do you know that she's been taken down in every single fight that she's fought in the last 7 times? The last 7 fights, she's been taken down. You know how many get-ups she had? 1. It was against Stolyarenko, I think, or Petrovic, that tried to get that tried to get like a knee bar or a heel hook or something, lost it, and then she was able to stand up. It wasn't because of top control or anything like that. She didn't have any get-ups. Once she gets down to the ground, she's stuck on the ground. Her takedown defense has been historically bad here. So I get that she's the better striker, and she's going to be better at range. Montana De La Rosa is not the best striker, but the grappling upside for Montana De La Rosa is so huge for me. It really just 2 takedowns for De La Rosa, and that's the fight, right? So I have a hard time betting on Carolina here. The bad tendency where she just has that narrow stance makes the takedowns come very easy. The way that she throws kicks that can get caught makes the takedowns very easy. And the way that she tries to counter with the knee, sometimes you can just level change and she just falls over. And then once she's down on the ground, Montana De La Rosa should take over. So I see this fight playing out at distance. Again, Carolina's going to try to, feel her out on the feet. She's going to kick eventually. She has a high kick rate. I think she has a 33% kick rate. So a lot of her strikes involve a kick, and she's just so slow with them, right? So, again, once it gets down to the ground, I think she's going to take over. I'm not confident on Montana De La Rosa. She's not great, but she just has such big grappling upper side. I can see if they stayed standing where Carolina could outpoint her. She doesn't have the power in her hands to put her away, but she could land the kicks, out volume her, and maybe win a decision. She's not going to look minus 500 in the striking. But if Montana De La Rosa gets the takedown, Montana De La Rosa could look minus 500, minus 400 in the grappling, where Carolina's just a fish off the back. She can't do anything. She gets ground and pounded, maybe even finished in the later rounds, but it probably goes to decision. So that's why I like Montana De La Rosa. For me, it's dog or pass. I can't put money on Carolina. Her grappling hole. If she was fighting another striker and I knew that grappling was not an issue, no problem, go for it. But just the way she just topples over and just the way she can't get up, it's dog or pass for me. I can't risk that.
I like it, man. I totally get it. And that's, like I said, I'm trying to listen to these little inner voices, right? There's a reason I'm not going to go to war here with Luana Carolina. And I did go back and watch the Julia Stoliarenko fight. And we all know Julia gasses out incredibly quickly. Like, she is crazy dangerous for round one. I loved how Luana tried to defend the takedown, tried to get into a good position. She actually got put in the armbar position from Julia, and that's her best move. She's the queen of the round one armbar, and Luana defended it perfectly. She did everything fine, but she was stuck in it at the end of the round. The round ended with her in the armbar. She didn't actually get out of it. Oh. And so these are the kinds of things where it's like, it's a bit of a red flag when you're going up against somebody who theoretically can grapple. Now, I don't know that I can trust Montana De La Rosa to actually grapple based on what we've seen recently, but like you said, this is either going to be a split decision with these two picking and poking at each other, or Montana looks minus 500. It's a very valid point. I respect it. I love the look here with the slight underdog. Have at it, my man.
One other thing. Luana Carolina got submitted knee barred by Ariane Lipski, and that knee bar took forever. She was moving the knee around. Just shows you how much of, and Lipski's a fish off of her back. She was able to knee bar Carolina, and then Montana De La Rosa fights Lipski, and she just destroys her because of the grab. She takes her down, just controls her, and beats her on the ground and stuff, right? So it's just such a bad look how deficient she is on the ground. I just wanted to add that other extra point that they fought a common opponent, and one got knee barred by Lipski, and one couldn't, just destroyed Lipski on the ground.
Oh, you're killing me here, Art. You're killing me, because what the real issue that I've been having recently is these spots where, like I said, Milk White's Acosta last week is like, when I look at it, and also like Ion Kutalaba and Ibo, you look at it and I'm going, that's wrong. I'm not pulling the trigger on a bet, but that's wrong. You know what I mean? So like, I'm staying away. This is wrong. Like, you're absolutely right. There's such a clear, clean path here for Montana De La Rosa, domination on the ground. Oh boy. Okay. I have not clicked bet yet, but you guys, I'm changing. I'm siding with my guy Art. Split decision doesn't take a whole lot to talk me into going the other way in low-level women's MMA. I feel bad, Luana. Dread, I'm sorry. You've been my girl. I've been riding with you this whole time. I'm going to pick Montana De La Rosa via grappling. Maybe she pulls it out this week. I'm going to listen to some interviews, Art. That's the big thing. And I'm going to see where Montana De La Rosa's head is at coming into this fight. If I like what I hear, maybe she gets my money. Shout out Andrew, my guy, for the donation in the chat. Thank you very much. Hooker versus Gaethje. Early lean, Art. What side do you like, Hooker versus Gaethje?
Without taping it, I have to go Gaethje. Just Hooker has those long, skinny legs that just I can't imagine him lasting for that long. Both guys striking wise, both guys very durable, hard to hit, right? Just the leg kicks playing a big difference. I had Gaethje over. I had Holloway against Gaethje, but Holloway has the footwork to avoid the leg kicks from Gaethje. He's able to stay on the outside. Hooker doesn't do that. He's going to plant. He's going to throw in the middle, and those leg kicks are going to be probably orthodox versus orthodox, if I recall correctly. And the leg kicks are just being the big difference makers. So I like Gaethje in that fight.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And so much damage taken from both of those guys. Like, I feel like Hooker's ready to fall apart. I really do. Like, he's got this ability to dig deep and keep coming. Gaethje's in car crashes. Hooker is Homer Simpson, right? Like he completely takes the beating and then tries to come back, whereas Gaethje is trading damage. I don't think it's quite the same thing, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if Hooker is just he's taken too much at this point. So I'm with you. I'm leaning Gaethje early as well, but it's going to be a hell of a fight. That's a fan win type of fight. Thank you very much again for the donation there, my guy Andrew. If I can get my tongue untwisted here for you. Next fight up, we've got Lucas Almeida, and he takes on Danny El Puma Silva. This fight should be a banger, like fight of the night potential. This is violence all over it, man. Lucas Almeida, 34 years old. He is 3-3 in his last 6. He got KO'd by Andre Fili, which, especially after what we just saw, kind of a sketchy look. He got tapped by Pat Sabatini, which, like, I'm kind of a Pat Sabatini hater to some extent, but he's very good at jiu-jitsu. So, like, all right, I'll give you a pass. He really messed up my night when he KO'd Trezano. I never saw that coming. I did not think he was going to knock Trezano out cold. This guy is all team violence, like Hall of Famer, vote him in. He's just a member of team violence from start to finish. He got a win over Timmy Kwamba in his last fight, and he actually was an underdog in that fight. A lot of people were just so sold on the limited exposure we had to Timmy that they were ready to make him a favorite over this guy, and Lucas beat him pillar to post. I mean, dropped him early and just put it on him for a full 15 minutes. Really good performance from him. Completely outclassed Timmy. Showed the difference in their power. He has solid power in his hands. He cuts off the cage well. He's got a big right cross. He's got a nasty fadeaway check left hook that he likes to use. Sometimes he loads up a little bit too much on those power shots. Those are kind of his two big weapons. You got to watch for the club and sub because he does have a nasty little submission game on him. He's got several subs like from back in his regional days. He hasn't been able to pull it off in the UFC to this point, but he kind of hasn't needed to. When he wins, it's pretty violent and impactful. But I'm just saying, guys, don't necessarily fall in love with the KO if you like the Lucas Almeida side. The sub is always going to be on the table in the right type of situations here. Danny Silva, 28 years old, looks like he's a protege of Cub Swanson. He's been traveling around a little bit recently, though, just kind of stalking his Instagram. I went out to TriStar, went out to Jackson Wing. So, you know, he's getting some time in other places. He's coming off a split win over Josh Kalibau. There's several people on this card coming off a split win over Josh Kalibau. This guy shells and rolls really well. Like, when he gets in the pocket, he just wants to stay there. It's like you literally put your foot in a tire and just sit right in front of your opponent, and it's all head movement, rolling, covering, and then returning. And that's a great fight for Lucas Almeida because I think one of these guys is going to go to sleep. I got to give Danny props for his toughness. You know, that Dana White's Contender Series fight, I guess his entire career, he plays with his hands low, but especially on Dana White's Contender Series, he kept his hands down, and they were just trading hooks in the pocket. He was blocking power shots with his face. I don't know how he didn't go out in that spot. He put over 200 significant strikes up on his opponent, and he ate like 180 significant strikes coming back the other way. He can wrestle when he needs to. He's got a decent body lock on him. Looks like he's got decent back control. It's nothing to be really excited about, and he kind of mixes it in from time to time to keep you thinking, but it's not something he goes to regularly. This guy wants to bang. Man, everything on paper says that Danny Silva is the better prospect. He's the younger guy. He should be getting better. He should be headed the right direction. We're real excited about him. But his tendency to get in the pocket and drop his hands, I don't think you want to do that against Lucas Almeida. Like, if you're not going to be technical and you're just going to come in and brawl, that's how Lucas Almeida cracks people. So I can't trust this kid at a minus 200-ish price tag. He's like minus 190 out there right now. Lucas Almeida is a plus 160 underdog. And man, I want to see some violence props because I think we look at fight not to go the distance. You know, I think we look at unders. It looks like at Bet Online, which is the only place I can find the totals as far as over and under goes, fight not to go the distance is minus 125. So it'll be ever so slightly chalked to the under. And like I said, man, I think violence. Like, I could absolutely see either one of these guys going down, and I expect them to get into a war. So money line, I think it's dog or pass. I think under is probably the bet. What do you like in this fight?
Clint, let me just show you that I just put that play in on a Bet Online. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 125. I like it.
Go.
I agree. It's going to be a war, and you really touched on it. You nailed it there, Danny Silva. You know, when your opponent comes forward, you have two ways of reacting. You can either move backwards and try to keep that range, or you can sit in the pocket and throw back. And Danny Silva just sits in the pocket and throw back. You know, he's good boxing. He likes to stick and move and roll with it. So he loves the pocket fighting. You touched on the significant strikes that he absorbed and landed. You know, landing over 200 significant strikes is kind of crazy, right? So it's a small sample size, but 98% of his significant strikes are at a distance. He just walks his opponent down. He stays in the pocket. He likes to throw a lot of elbows, right? And he'll be in the clinch throwing elbows over the top. He doesn't move back as his opponent moves forward, and he has power. And the output actually increases as the fight goes on. He lands 11 forward pressure, pocket striking, volume strikes, right? So Silva can grapple, but you talked about it, he just wants to bang, so he doesn't proactively look for them. It's more like defensive grappling, and he has looked improved grappling. He did have that one loss on the regional scene to Kanen Kawai, right, where he got grappled, he got put on his back, and he couldn't get up. Ever since that fight, he said he was like renewed and he wanted to work on his grappling a lot more. I did see improvements in his grappling. Now he's looking for takedown sort of thing. So I think that part is a little bit better. I don't think Almeida goes for the takedown either. So it's going to be, it's going to be a war on the feet. I think it's going to be orthodox versus orthodox. Danny Silva is going to be on that front foot. Almeida is going to stay within kicking range. So both guys exchanging leg kicks. Danny Silva, I think, just has the harder leg kick. He'll work his left hook. He throws the left hook 19% of the time. He throws the straight right 14% of the time, and that right hook 13% of the time. So he's throwing all these power punches. He wants to be in the pocket there, right? And the forward pressure of Silva really limits the amount of leg kicks that Almeida can throw off the back foot. It's very hard to throw leg kicks while you're moving backwards, right? So he's always in your face. He's always in the forward pressure. It could force Almeida to shoot for a takedown. Sometimes they don't like the pressure in front of you, so they go for a takedown. Danny Silva, again, didn't look great off of his back, so I don't think it happens. Almeida doesn't really look for the takedown. I'm just saying that the pressure could get to you, and sometimes you want a relief from the pressure, so you go for a takedown, lie on him, get your cardio back, and then come back up, right? So the output that Danny Silva puts out, it's very hard to match. How many people are landing 200 strikes per round, right, sort of thing. So kind of crazy work there. And Danny's output increases in rounds 2 and 3. So I can see a late finish from Danny Silva here because of that forward pressure, because he's working the body and the elbows and stuff. I can see Almeida start to melt. But I like the violence prop. Like you said, the sub is live. He hasn't shown much grappling, but the sub is live. I get taking the Danny Silva side. He's probably the better guy, the better fighter. I pick him to win the fight. But I think it's going to be Danny Silva by knockout. He just has a way to be in your face. He just has that forward pressure. I think his intangibles are there, but I think it's going to be a fun fight. I'll be looking at significant strike props for sure in this one. So keep an eye out, guys, for those ones, because you can definitely get some value there, depending on what they set the lines with. Sometimes DraftKings sets those one-way lines, and you'll have like 50 significant strikes round one. It's hard because it's a small sample size, but take a look at that. But yeah, I like Danny Silva here. I like fight ends to go fight ends within this distance. I just took that as well. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're lining up on violence. I think that's the easy way to pick them here on this one. It's a good price, too. I'm probably going to need to lock that one in myself, just because Lucas Almeida's been hurt, and also we know he's got that power. He's kind of the key here, is that I could see him getting finished very easily. It's already happened before, and then if you slip up against this guy, he's got the power to put you away. So I like it. Doesn't go the distance. First violence bet of the night, and a very, very important question from Dan the Man, 32. Clint, old gloves back permanently. Are we leaning violence this week? And baby, we're always leaning violence with the old UFC gloves back. I am so happy they finally made the right decision to go, you know what, guys, are bad. It's very rare these days that anybody does that, especially big corporations, especially people like Dana White. They see being wrong as a weakness. They actually figured out that this was a bad choice and a bad move for their product, and they're turning the boat around. We have got old gloves permanently moving forward. The old gloves are simply just the gloves from now on. And it's true that the violence rates are much, much higher using those gloves. So if you were ever on the fence, we don't have to do that. Will they, won't they, because of the glove situation anymore. It's old gloves all the time, 24/7. And I do think we'll see some of these knockout rates start to kind of go back up to where they should be.
What a segue into the next fight.
I know, right? We've got a fight where there's almost guaranteed to not be a finish. Andrea Lee takes on JJ Aldrich. And I just want to, real quickly, you guys, I want to talk about this number because it's JJ Aldrich minus JJ Aldrich minus 195. I cannot believe we have a near 2-to-1 price tag on JJ Aldrich in 2025. What a disgusting fight, you guys. I am Homer. Sorry, not Homer. I am Bart Simpson. You know, at the beginning of The Simpsons where he's always like writing something on the board. I will not bet Andrea Lee. I will not bet Andrea Lee. I am telling myself just over and over and over again that I cannot put my money on this woman. She's actually approaching a 500 fighter record, which is almost impossible to do in 2025. She is 13-10. She is 36 years old. So she's age appropriate for me, but she's not bettable appropriate for me on a 5-fight losing streak. My goodness. Viviane Araújo, Macy Barber, Natalia Silva, Miranda Maverick, and then the previously mentioned Montana De La Rosa. So what happened, Art, is I made the same argument I always make for Andrea Lee, where it's, I love the effort, I love the volume, I love the kiosks. Those seem to swing the judges sometimes. Just by making more noise, you can get a little bit more credit for the work that you're doing. She does that. I like the never quit attitude. And I'm like, you know what? She is finally getting a break from like the cream of the crop, right? Vivi's going to take her down. Macy's going to be able to physically bully her. Natalia Silva is the shit. Miranda Maverick's going to take her down. It's like, it was so obvious that those last couple of fights she was outclassed. You get Montana De La Rosa, somebody who you've already fought and beat. You can win this one, Andrea. So I go ahead and I put in the bet. And like I said, most disappointing performance I ever could have asked for. Now we have to ask ourselves, is she completely washed? Because she just looks like a shell of herself. She's complete dust. She doesn't want to get hit the way that she used to. She used to kind of smile when she got popped in the face and then come forward and try and throw elbows. She doesn't really do that anymore. She backs off a lot now. She's striking at air to just kind of keep the space and the distance. She doesn't want a car crash. Like, you get to a certain point, you guys, where your knees start to hurt and you don't really feel like running anymore. Like, that's what it feels like. Andrea's hit that point here to me where she's just too far gone and she doesn't want to be in there anymore. Now, JJ Aldrich, she's one of these girls that I like to cheer for because she's low on the God-given talent side, right? She is not an athlete. She's not a superhuman. She's a hard worker. She's a thinker, and she's made it all the way to the UFC and is winning fights against some of the best athletes in the world based off of that work ethic. You know, she's got a win over Montana De La Rosa, who we've been talking about. I got a nice spot with my girl Veronica Hardy against her the last time out, and I kind of cited that athleticism difference being the key for that fight. And sure enough, JJ just couldn't find Veronica in the cage. She couldn't catch up with her. She couldn't cut her off. It was because she's too damn quick. At a certain point, there's just nothing you can do if your opponent has got that speed edge on you. JJ Aldrich is a very good boxer. She's got strong takedown defense. She seems like a little tank. She's pretty physical for somebody who doesn't have a ton of muscle on her frame. I just can't get to minus 200, man. Like, it's women's MMA. It's split decision city. Like, that's what this is. But I also cannot lose another red cent on Andrea Lee's money line. I'm terrified, Art, because I have a bad feeling you're going to tell me we have to bet Andrea Lee in this spot. And I can't take putting my money on her and then her unwrapping the gloves and laying them down in the center of the cage, because there's a very real chance that this is her retirement fight and she just gets boxed up and doesn't want to engage for 15 minutes. And I don't want any part of that. So I have to pick JJ Aldrich, you guys. But like, if it was 2 years ago, Art, this is like max bet season. If it was 2 years ago and I still believed in Andrea Lee.
Yeah, I completely agree. I looked at this fight and I was like, I can't spend too much time taping this. This is like, I want nothing to do with it. So for me, like, JJ Aldrich's been pretty unimpressive. I don't really think she's really good at anything. You talked about her boxing. She's okay in boxing, average at everything, mainly a distance striker at 82%, mainly a head hunter at 89% head target, with a 42 head strike accuracy, so pretty good. But long career and has 0 knockdowns for or against, just zero power in her hands there. And she really talked about it. She struggles to close the distance. She couldn't close the distance against the last fight against Hardy. I think there was one there again. The other one as well, same thing where she can't close the distance too well. She was a huge favorite against Na Liang, and then she finished her in round 2. But round 1 was pretty competitive. She had on top and stuff like that, right? Lipski we talked about. Yeah, for me, it's just JJ Aldrich doesn't do anything too well, right? She even tried to grapple. We talked about Lipski. Lipski's going to come up a lot here. She tried to grapple Ariane Lipski. We talked about how bad her takedown defense is and then fish on the ground. JJ went 0 for 12 on takedown attempts. And then the same thing against Veronica Hardy. She just can't get close to them and hold them, right? She's not a big kicker. She doesn't throw many, not a big hitter. She doesn't throw very many kicks, and she doesn't really try to grapple, right? So how do you really get to a minus 200, minus 250 favorite? Like, she doesn't have the ability to separate, right? She's going to be standing, and that's the type of fight that Andrea Lee on paper wants. She's a striker by trade, Muay Thai kickboxer, right? She wants to strike with you. So yeah, the line's way off, right? And you talked about Andrea Lee. She's on 5 in a row losses. She's lost 8 of her last 10. But some of the strength of competition is up there, right? And again, this goes back to the Luana Carolina side. Some of those girls are the same girls. They're just like top 10 in the division. So Andrea Lee probably getting a step down in competition against JJ Aldrich. If she's not done, this is the fight that she's going to show it. But like you said, she's getting a little bit older. She looks slower on tape. I can't do it. For me, it's dog or pass if you're going to bet it. You could take fight goes to decision at minus 600 or whatever it is, but because it's not going to lose. But I don't really condone those type of plays. But it's hard to see a finish. You might get an injury or something, or things like that.
Andrea quits on the stool between rounds 2 and 3. Yeah. I'm just done.
yeah. So I can't get money here. I can't be confident on either side either. I might attack it live or just head to the washroom when the fight's on. So that's sort of how I can see this one.
Yeah, this isn't even a fireball and popcorn fight, you guys. This is like start chugging the wine bottle, go check on the wife type of fight. This one probably is not going to be very entertaining to watch unless Andrea finds a way to turn back the clock. Maybe she joined the Fighting Nerds, like half of the rest of the roster. She's going to go jump on the squad and get some juices pumped in her.
Triangle to start or something.
Exactly. Yeah. No, man, I was even looking at the spread on this one because believe it or not, you guys, I went from being a skeptic and being like spreads in MMA are stupid to realizing that these might be some of the softest spots on the board. Like I think moving forward, we're going to have a lot more spots to attack with these spreads. They've been working out real nicely when you find the right spots. And like I said, split decision, look, plus 3.5 on the dog Andrea Lee. If it's affordable, that might be a half decent look here in this spot because I can't see JJ Aldrich really extending herself in any way in this fight. The only way JJ is going to be able to hit Andrea Lee is if Andrea Lee chooses to sit in the pocket with her. So I could see Lee really just cruising in this fight. Again, if she's got anything left whatsoever, she could just cruise in this fight. And if it's close, if she gets taken down a couple times, which JJ not really known for her wrestling, it could again be a split decision and plus 3.5 should cover you, but it's minus 230. So like they're already onto it. This big plus money underdog has a massive chalk price tag on the plus 3.5 because they know this is going to be a close, greasy fight. And Art, I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to pick Andrea Lee to win. I'm not going to bet it. I am not going to bet it. Like we've got 5 days for me to sit and stare at this board. Maybe the number will eventually talk me into it because I can't get the athleticism gap out of my eyes. I did enough tape study. I could join Michael Bisping and Henry Cejudo with my eyes bleeding because it was so terrible to go through. But I watched enough tape on these two that I really feel like Andrea Lee just has that one little bit of cheat code because she'll be faster and that'll make the difference. But Rim Dog knows exactly what's up. The bookies are responsible for putting up lines, you guys. That does not mean you have to bet them. It is okay to pass on fights exactly like this one. So for now, it's a pass. But I'm going to call for the upset, man. I really am.
Can I just give you a tip there? You were talking about the spread bets, right? And your spread bets, normally DraftKings, sometimes they're bet online. I've noticed with DraftKings, they started opening up those like plus 5.5, plus 7.5 in the main events and stuff, right? So essentially, like a plus 5.5 on a 3-round fight. Like all the fighter has to do is win 1 round on one scorecard in order to cover that spread, right? And it's almost always a better price than the only way you lose is 30-27, clear all 3 judges, right? Or if the person gets finished, right? And most of the times the person getting finished, so say for example, it was like Fluffy last weekend against Brendan Allen. Fluffy, it was Brendan Allen plus 5.5. Was a good spread because Fluffy not inside the distance, not to finish, was like plus money as well. So you can get a good price on the alternate spreads if you're looking that way. And then all they have to do is win 1 round on one card, and the judges are all over the place. So that's what I've been sort of looking at as well.
Yeah. So, and just for an explanation for those of you who might be new to this concept, the spread bets for MMA, it's essentially judges' scores. So 3 judges, 3 rounds, a 29-28 decision, the winner getting 29 for 3 rounds, or sorry, for 2 of the 3 rounds would score 87 points, 29 times 3. The loser getting 28. Oh, geez, I did this wrong. If you get 28 across 3 scorecards, that's 84. Never mind. I'm explaining this wrong. I'm going to move on because I don't want to do the math right now. At any rate, you add 3.5 to the end of your judge's score. That's the way that it works. So, like Art was saying, especially if you get a plus 5.5 or a plus 7.5 or even a plus 9.5, like, in some of these fights where they expect a finish. That's the thing. You got to get it to the judges' scorecards, but then you're basically saying all you got to do is have one judge think you got 1 round, and you can cover that spread. They're pretty powerful when you think about it. My guy JV in the chat saying, "Isn't she an underdog? If you're picking her to win, Clint, you should probably bet her." I know, JV, but I can't lose money. I can't lose any more money on Andrea Lee. I swear, it'll kill me. It'll just crush me. All right, guys, next fight up: Douglas Silva de Andrade. He takes on John Sexy Mexi Castañeda. One of the ageless Brazilians here are Douglas Silva de Andrade, knocking on 40 years old, 3-3 in his last 6. He's coming off a loss to Miles, Chapo, Johns, and Art. I am so proud of myself. I just need to take a minute. I need to pat myself on the back because I have tried to fade Miles Johns just over and over and over again, and I keep losing money when he pulls it off, and I keep being this close. But he'll get the win on the decision. He'll get that last takedown. Like, he'll get the nod on a split decision where I don't agree with it, but he still manages to get his hand raised. I could not fade him. And I said, you know what? I'm switching teams. I'm not going to try to force a fade on Miles Johns with Douglas Silva de Andrade. I'm going to get my money back by betting on Miles Johns because he's the younger fighter, and I think he can pull this off. So I finally made money on a Miles Johns fight, and it was betting against 38-year-old Douglas Silva de Andrade.
Easy.
Man, this guy's... Do you remember when Vitor Belfort came off the TRT?
Oh, yeah.
I know not everybody's going to get that reference because some of the younger fans are going to be like, who? But so Vitor Belfort, one of the most jacked drug abusers in UFC history.
Only fought in Brazil.
Yeah, they've got him on testosterone replacement theory. And when that whole thing went down, they said, you can't do that anymore. He shriveled up like a raisin. Like, this guy got skinny all of a sudden. He got saggy all of a sudden. It was like, what happened to this Brazilian god overnight? Douglas Silva de Andrade is starting to look like that. Father Time is catching him. He's getting a little skinny in the neck. He's getting a little saggy around the midsection that it's just like, man, even with all the acai in the world, you just can't stop it from happening. Eventually, Father Time's going to get you, and it looks like that's starting to happen to him, man. The biggest thing for me is the speed. He's really starting to slow down. A guy like Miles Johns was able to stay out of the way of everything. Douglas Silva would bite down on the mouthpiece and wing his overhand, and that thing used to be like a fastball. It was a missile. You couldn't get out of the way of it. John saw it coming a mile away and was just able to kind of skip out of range of it and not have to even worry about it. So this guy's a physical beast. He's incredibly well-rounded. I think he's a BJJ black belt. I mean, he's from Brazil. He should be at this point if he's not already, but he's got a well-rounded game. Nice jab, solid power, good kicks. He does everything really well. He's just a little old in a small weight class and a little slow, and that's a death sentence. He's taken on John Castañeda, who's 33 years old, similarly kind of middle of the road, 2-2 in his last 4. Really slick boxing. I love the way John Castañeda uses his hands. He's got great footwork. His entire fight will look like Youssef Zalal's 3rd round, though. He wants to backpedal Always. He concedes the center of the cage to his opponent. He's always moving backwards, tries to pull you into a counter, tries to walk you into a big strike, tries to explode in when you're coming forward, and then he'll go right on back to moving backwards, man. He was getting lit up against Kyung Ho Kang a fight or two ago. Marcos was clipping him pretty much anytime he wanted to. Like, for a guy that moves backward and really relies on his speed and his footwork and his defense, he's pretty hittable, which is a little bit nerve-wracking here, but he's got great volume. He put up over 110 significant strikes against Kyung Ho Kang. He's got a very underrated wrestling and submission game. He can go to that when he needs to mix things up. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot. And man, this is another one where you look at Father Time. If it was 2-3 years ago, I would make a big argument for Douglas Silva de Andrade being able to clip him just once, clip him, hurt him, change the tide of this fight. But today, I think John Castañeda is going to make it real hard for Douglas to catch him. Even in the small cage, I think he'll just be able to dance around the cage, avoid the big power shots, engage on his terms. And in a fight like that, it's going to be real hard to hurt this guy enough to put him away. I think it's going to be John Castañeda by decision. So he's a minus 265 favorite right now. And I will go ahead and pick him to win. I think there'll be a couple of sketchy, hairy moments, but at the end of the day, youth prevails, man. Sexy Mexi for me.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head. And just pro tip for everybody watching, like at 135, the age is such a big factor because these guys, they're reliant on their speed. They're reliant on their like size. They're very hard to hit because they move around a lot. With the age, there's no amount of training that can do it, but you just start to slow down, and you can see it on the tape and stuff, right? And once you start slowing down against these smaller guys, it's such a big disadvantage. Like in the bigger weight classes, there's a reason why heavyweight, the average age at heavyweight's a lot higher and older, because they're not really reliant on the speed. They're more power and technique and stuff, right? But at the lower weight classes, the speed makes such a difference, and that's what Castañeda has in this fight, right? He has that outside movement, the footwork and stuff, right? Andrade wants to really load up on those big strikes, right? So Andrade, UFC veteran, 13 fights, most of his wins, 57% of his wins coming from decision, 67% coming of his losses coming from decision as well. So very historically pretty durable. Distance striker at 92% of strikes coming from a distance, and he goes to the head at 71% of the time. 28% accuracy is not the best look there, right? So a lot of winging punches that tend to miss. Head strike defense is okay at 33%, has 6 knockdowns in his UFC career, but 3 of them was against Morozov in round 2, right? So doesn't have a ton. Like, I know he's throwing those big shots, but he needs those big moments, right? So he doesn't really try to grapple as much. He's seen 51 takedown attempts, and he's only allowed 14, so 27% success rate against. And his volume actually increases as the fight goes on. So in round number 1, he's averaging 15 strikes, 17 strikes in round 2, and 19 strikes in round 3. Whereas on the Castañeda side, the actual strikes absorbed and the strikes thrown actually goes down, right? So Castañeda averages 28 strikes thrown round 1, 21 in rounds 2, and 21 in rounds 3. So there might be a volume edge there in the later rounds. Both guys heavy kickers, all right? A lot of their time they're going to be throwing these kicks, and Castañeda, I looked at some of the kicking numbers there, right? Some big numbers against some decent quality opponents here. Let me just read some out. So against Marcos, he goes 15 of 22 in round 1. Kyung Ho Kang goes 17 of 20 in round number 1. Kyung Ho Kang 10 of 10 in round number 3, right? So it's going to be that outside kicking game. He's going to throw that volume, try to slow down his opponent a little bit. I think he nailed it on the head there. I think it goes to decision. I don't think I don't think they find the finish there, and I think Andrade's just going to be a little bit too slow. Castañeda going to work the outside and probably cruise to decision here.
Okay, all right. I like it, man. I like it. My guy Dix Insider asking the $1 million question: is John Castañeda a Mexican or a Mexicant? And that is a great question, my friend. We will find out on Saturday. Should be a fun fight, though. Should be a good one, man. Okay, next up. Banger. Absolute banger. Biggest favorite on the board. Chepe Mariscal returns, taking on Ricardo Ramos. I like this fight. I made a little bit of a joke earlier on in the card about everybody joining the fighting nerds, man, because that's exactly what Ricardo Ramos has done. He's jumped on over there. He's seeing the success they're having, and he says, baby, give me a piece of that. 17-6, 29 years old. Just another one of these guys that how is he only 29? I feel like he's been around here for freaking ever. Ricardo Ramos is what I like to call discount Charles Oliveira. Like, he reminds me of the young Charlie O, the one that used to be fragile, the one that was cutting down to 145 and was, had that quit in him. Ricardo Ramos is that version of him, right? Like, he's still a little fragile. He still quits on himself. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to train him out of it, but I'm not entirely certain. Charles Oliveira seems to be a bit of an outlier in that area, someone who's able to overcome those types of things. Ricardo is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. I will never understand, Art. You cannot convince me how Josh Kalibau lost the fight at UFC 305. It makes no sense. Josh Kalibau had this guy on his back trying to coax him down to the ground within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Completely destroyed his legs within 3 minutes. And then as the fight gets extended, somehow he doesn't finish there. Somehow he engages in the grappling and gets backpacked. And I don't know what happened. One of the judges must have somehow scored that round for Ricardo Ramos or something like that, something funky. Because then in round 2, Josh is making him look silly. I mean, he's out there showboating like Manel Kape. Like he's ballerina, like twirling in the middle of the cage and spinning. And it was almost to the point of embarrassment, though, because I'm sitting here with a Josh Kalibau ticket and I'm going, Josh, shut up and throw. Like, just go back to the leg kicks. And then he left Ricardo Ramos alone for the rest of the night and somehow ends up in a split decision that's very close, very competitive, completely lets Ricardo Ramos back in this fight, and then gets robbed by the judges. And I will say robbed, because while it ended up being closer than it should have been, the first 2 rounds were essentially domination from Josh Kalibau. It should not have gone to Ricardo Ramos, but Josh gave him an opportunity to get back in that fight, and he took it. So really weird situation, but he should really be 1-4 in his last 5. BJJ, black belt, very tight squeeze. Can't mess with this guy on the ground. You can't give him any opportunities. But he does have these mental lapses where we had 2 fights back-to-back where he lost by guillotine. Julian Rosa and Charles Jourdain both got him because he shot in for a takedown, left his neck out there, and just panics. Like, I don't know what the deal is, because for a guy that's a BJJ black belt, you should know better than putting yourself in that position, or you should feel comfortable escaping from it. Like, how many black belts get tapped that often that quickly? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't quite make sense to me how that keeps happening to him, but it really seems like he panics and breaks, and that's a regular thing with this kid. He's just got that quit in him, and it's a problem. He'll be 2 inches taller in this spot. He will have a 3-inch reach advantage. Chepe Mariscal, 32 years old. He's on a 4-0 UFC run. And similarly to Josh Kalibau, I've got some beef with Chepe from his last fight. I really thought, not his last fight, sorry, the one before that. I really thought that Morgan Charrier beat him. That was another split decision. As you guys can hear, we're talking about a lot of fights that took place in 2024. The amount of splits I lost last year, just phenomenal. But I really felt like Morgan Charrier won that fight. He had Chepe busted up and hurt a couple of different times, and if damage is the main factor of scoring in MMA, he definitely should have gotten the nod, but c'est la vie, here we are. Chepe ends up coming back against Damon Jackson, kind of beats the brakes off him there. I like Chepe a lot. This is a guy who's made out of steel. He reminds me of kind of a more violent version of Chris Curtis. He's short, he's tanky, he's got decent takedown defense, and he just stays in your face and keeps on coming forward. And I say more violent because I mean more violent. He hangs out with Justin Gaethje, and he loves those leg kicks. He's got those same chopping leg kicks. He wants to come forward. He wants to take your legs out. He wants to hurt you. He's hard to hold down, and he'll get up and get in your face. 72% takedown defense, mostly goes to work with his hands, but another guy that's just very, very difficult to get out of there. He has been knocked out 3 times, but guys, I want to talk to you about the 3 times he was knocked out. Regionals, LFA, Steve Garcia, who we now know is a complete monster and is fighting a full weight class up from here. They will not rematch because he's gone up a weight class. Joanderson Brito, a guy who's got crazy power, and I believe that was an early stoppage. I haven't gone back and watched that fight for a minute, but if I recall correctly, Art, I believe the fight with Joanderson Brito was pretty quick on the trigger as far as closing the fight down. And then you got to go all the way back to like 2016 for the last one. And it was Gregor Gillespie, like another name that you guys know. So he's not getting knocked out by bums. He's getting knocked out by legitimate UFC guys on the regionals when he ran into them. Art, why is this not just parlay season for Chepe? I really feel like he's going to destroy the legs of Ramos. Josh Kalibau put it in bold letters for everyone to see that this is a very easy path to victory, and then for some reason, let off the gas. Why can't Chepe just destroy the legs of Ricardo Ramos early? If he puts this guy on his back, he's not going to make the mistake of jumping in his guard and going in and trying to wrestle him. I will give you guys word of caution. Chepe every once in a while does level change and sticks his neck out a little bit. You go back to that Morgan Charrier fight. He was shooting for double legs. He was engaging in the grappling, and Charrier was threatening with front chokes. But I think that's because that was a different style fight, Art. I think that's because he wanted to mix in the game. He wanted to make sure that Morgan Charrier didn't feel comfortable on the feet. He wanted to try to wear him out, get some lactic acid going in his arms. I highly doubt that'll be the game plan here against Ricardo Ramos, but it is sticking in my head that there might be a threat for the submission against Ricardo Ramos. If he doesn't do that, if he just keeps this fight standing, defends the takedowns, attacks the legs, I have a hard time seeing Chepe lose this fight, man. I think the big price tag makes a ton of sense here. Minus 425, Chepe Mariscal. What do you make of this fight?
I think you hit it on the head again there. I think that's his easiest path to victory. Really, is just a leg kick, stay in the pocket, right? I find Chepe. I like him. He's just a dog. He likes to fight. He likes to get into brawls. He has very good dirty boxing, and he fights from orthodox. He throws those heavy leg kicks, like you said. He changed with Justin Gaethje, Corey Sandhagen. He throws the body kicks, and he just likes to be in the pocket and clinch and throw. He throws a lot of hooks to the body when he's in the clinch, and he'll throw a lot of volume in close as well. So he's going to come forward. He's going to pressure again. He's going to throw those outside low kicks. I think he has a judo background, so he likes to clinch. And when he's in the clinch, he has some nice outside trips, hip tosses, trying to get the fight down to the ground. And he trains at elevation, right? So he has good cardio. He can push that pace for 3 rounds. The only weakness, and you talked about it, was the grappling exchanges, right? He tends to give up his back while trying to get up, right? He just says, take my back, I'm getting up, sort of thing. Damon Jackson tried to get the hooks in, but couldn't get into him. He turned into him. So Chepe's outlanded 3 of the 4 opponents that he's fought. The only one with Jack Jenkins, which ended out in an arm injury. Chepe was credited with 28 takedown attempts in the last 4 fights and succeeded in 11 of them. But like I said, I don't think he's proactively looking to grapple. It's more because he sits in his pocket, he punches way into the pocket, and that guy try to clinch with him. And then in the clinch, he'll throw his hip tosses and he'll throws and things like that. So he wasn't afraid to take Damon Jackson down, but he hasn't really fought a true grappler or a wrestler that we watch. So he does seem to have all the tools there to make it an interesting fight, right? And Ricardo Ramos, you touched on it, right? He's a veteran. He has like an 87% single strike rate, 26% kicking rate, and he's known for his flashy spinning attacks and BJJ. His last 3 finishes or last 3 KO wins were spinning back elbow, and jumping knee. This guy has no power in his hands to actually finish fights with his hands. He has to rely on this flashing stuff, right? So if Ricardo Ramos is going to pull something out of a hat, it's going to be some kind of weird spin and catch Chepe off guard. But tit for tat, I think Chepe is just, he's the goods here. Ricardo Ramos, he's going to throw combinations. He's going to throw the outside kick as well. We talked about the single strike rate, right? And he does this thing where like he throws and he overextends on his 2, but then he uses it to like duck under, get into the clinch and get in close. And then he'll try to like transition to the body, jump to the back while you're still standing, and then get your back that way, right? So Chepe, he's going to fight in the pocket a lot. I can see sometimes where, Ramos will be able to get to the back maybe in those clinch exchanges, right? Chepe has to do a good job of just keeping him in front of himself, not letting him get to the back there, right? And I think he's good. You talked about those leg kicks, right? I think that the leg kicks are a clear path to victory. It doesn't really make sense. Within the first round, he was already on one leg, and he relied on the grappling to win. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Chepe, right? He just relies on the spinning attacks. His ground control is not that good. He does have multiple fights with multiple takedowns because his top control isn't that good. He's going for submissions. He got submitted back to back by front guillotines, and it just, like you said, he looked like he quit. He looked like his head was getting out of there. He just, a couple more seconds and he would have popped up, but he's like insta tapping and stuff, right? And it's weird from like a BJJ black belt to get caught in those chokes. Obviously, for Rosa, that's his bread and butter, is that front choke. So I get it, right? But it looked like it wasn't there, and he taps out. So Ramos doesn't have the power in his hands. He's relying on his spinning attacks. Mariscal has good chin. I think he's going to cover the price tag. I think he's going to win. My prediction is win by knockout. The only way that really loses, like I said, is some kind of weird back take from a clinch or some kind of spinning back elbow and stuff. And I think you're safe, though.
Glad you and I are seeing that one the same, man. You kind of stole my final point here from me when we circled back around. I always talk about how this guy spins every single fight. He gets desperate and he starts throwing spinning elbows. Like, you go back and you watch the tape, literally every single fight, he throws a spinning back elbow because that's just his thing. He absolutely must. He can't help himself. You can time takedowns off of it. You can time big power shots off of it. He's been made to pay for it a few times. And it just, like you said, man, it makes his wins look so fluky that it's like, really? Like, that's the only way he can knock these guys out is with these crazy spinning elbows. Like, as long as you know it's coming, you can see it coming, you're not going to get caught by it. And that's the only way he's got the power to hurt you on the feet. I like Chepe a lot in this spot, and I'm straight up calling for the leg kick TKO, man. Like, I think he's just going to make him quit. I think he'll just beat his legs up until this guy lays on his back, and when the referee makes him stand up, Chepe's smart enough to go back to it. I think he'll just start chopping again.
Yeah, I can see it. Like, I can see late props. Those are worth a stab. I'm kicking myself because I like on my notes here. I have like minus 260 for Chepe. I see he's minus 500 now. I missed the boat on that one. So,
well, and that's the thing. The number is a little bit blown out here in this spot, and you guys, the word anchor came across my mind here on this one. I'm like, I haven't gone to the anchor parlays in a long time, but I think that Chepe stands a very, very good. I think he's going to win the fight. I very much think he's going to win the fight. Now, if you want to pull the parachute, you want to hedge a little bit, Ramos by sub, I think, is almost his only path to victory here, and that's 10-1. So you'll be able to hedge if you want to do something like that. If you have a big parlay that hinges on Chepe, the sub prop from Ricardo Ramos could be something that you'd be able to go ahead and throw in there. The final point I want to make before we move on, because I like this fight a lot. I've got a lot to say about it. Chepe is currently training with Tatsuro Taira. So not only is he up there at elevation with Gaethje, but they have folded in Tatsuro freaking Taira. And so if you don't think he's going to be getting rounds on the mat, the submission defense is going to get tested, the counter grappling is going to get worked on. Like, yeah, he's working with freaking Taira. So I think he's going to be ready for the grappling as well in this fight.
I wonder what Chepe's submission would be.
Ooh. And that's, it's funny because I was like, does Chepe even have a guillotine? Oh my God, it's plus 400 on bet.
Oh, that's not like, I can't take that. This gross.
Those stingy, greedy bastards. Like, how are you only giving plus 400 on a guy who doesn't even attempt submissions? Like, come on now. That should at least be an 800. At least. Gross. J29, what's going on? Love to see you live, my man. Thank you for shouting out from the UK. All right, guys, real quick, let's pay a couple of bills here. First and foremost, Spectation Sports. You guys make sure you get signed up here. We've got some fun fights coming up. Aries Fight Series, Fusion Fight League is going to be coming. They are getting tons of new fighting organizations under the Spectation Sports banner. This thing is set to explode. There's going to be more MMA than you can handle. Using promo code DIEHARD, get 20% off when you sign up using that code. You're going to need these people for when you do your tape study for Dana White's Contender Series. All those prospects are going to be on here. Plus, you've got UFC veterans and stuff like that that are trying to work their way back. It's tons of action, tons of fights. Check out Spectation Sports. You guys are going to want to be on the train. Next up, I want to shout out John Kelly and his boys over at Fight Numbers. I lost $3 this week on DFS. Usually they help me make money. They're still helping me though, because that could have been a complete swing and a miss, but I only lost $3 on DFS this week, thanks to the tools here with these guys. The tools, the modeling, the trends, the predictions, the ownerships. There's a lot of stuff that you guys can get at Fight Numbers. If you're a serious person who does DFS, this is a tool that you're going to need in your arsenal. And again, promo code DIEHARD will get you a bit of a break there. Use the link in the description below. Finally, bet openly. We are this close, you guys, this close to $10 million dollars saved for bettors. This is peer-to-peer gambling, so a real-life human being is accepting your action on the other side of every single bet that you make. They've got instant book DFS props, which is really cool for like significant strike parlays and things like that you can do for the UFC. You can actually house parlays, which is one of my absolute favorite things in the world to do. You can see what bets other people have that are open rather than creating your own. You can actually customize this feed right here, and you can select your sport. So if I want to go UFC and parlay, hit apply and see what people are throwing out here. It's like shooting fish in a barrel on Sundays during football season, man. You can always find the one or two legs that you know is just going to bust everybody's parlays, house a bunch of them. You're doing a favor to a fellow degenerate out there in the world, and then you're also having some action where you've got edge being the house. It's so flexible, and everybody's saving money by using this platform. Click the link in the description below for me, you guys. Check it out. Get signed up. I'm also doing giveaways. Thanks to my partnership with Bet Openly, I've literally been able to give away like thousands of dollars to you guys for being involved here with me. So please get signed up. That'll go a long way to helping me out. And then, of course, we can do contests and things like that. And I didn't have one to do at this past fight, but I think I'm going to do a hockey contest for this week because now that NHL is back, there's tons of games. I can do a free giveaway for NHL this week, and then I'll be doing a giveaway for UFC 103, UFC Vegas 103. So make sure you get signed up so you can take part in those. They're free to enter, and then, you know, cash prize at the top just for playing. If you guys don't know my guy, Art, Mr. Electrocute himself, you need to check him out. One of the best statisticians in the damn game. He is very, very methodical the way he approaches these fights. I love the way he breaks them down. Very kind of him to spend a bunch of time here on this podcast with us breaking down these fights for you. So make sure you're supporting him, and let's get back into the fights. Next up, you've got left-handed god Danny Barlow making his return, taking on my freaking guy, Sam Patterson. Art, this fight hurts my soul just a little bit. Danny Barlow is a fantastic prospect. We talked about how his left hand was his moneymaker. I mean, he's got legitimate death touch power in that left hand. And when he first made it to the UFC, you know, when he's on Dana White's Contender Series, his whole game was just almost desperate to land that left hand. Like everything was just, let me find a way to touch you with my left hand. And since then, we've already started to see the evolution. You know, his fight with Josh Quinlan, I thought it was going to be over quick. He beat Josh up for 15 minutes, and he got the stoppage in the third round. Josh's face looked like you had taken like a meat hammer, like you're trying to pound out a steak before you cook it. That's what Josh Quinlan's face looked like at the end of that fight when it finally got stopped. He is mixing up his arsenal. It's not all desperation on just the left hand. He's improving. He's getting there. I'm really excited about Danny Barlow. And he went to a split decision against Nikolai Veretnikov in his last fight. That's something a lot of people are maybe potentially going to look down on, especially considering what just happened with Austin Vanderford. It was a close fight. Guys, Danny Barlow broke his left wrist, I believe, or like his forearm. He like broke his forearm in the first round of that fight. So the fact that he was able to dig deep, mix it up, do what he needed to do, and still get his hand raised after breaking his arm and fighting for a full 15 minutes. Again, impressive. Like, that's the kind of thing you want to see. He didn't immediately wave the towel and just be like, nope, I'm out of here. Like, that's a dog that's hungry to fight for your cash. And you want to put your money on those kinds of fighters. Jury's out on just how well-rounded he is. Jury's out a little bit on his grappling. I think he still needs to be tested there. There's a lot of room for this kid to grow still, but I'm very excited about what's coming down the pipe. Sam Patterson, 12-2-1. This kid is 28 years old, and I am a huge fan of him. I think the sky is the limit for this kid. He's got a 2-fight win streak going on right now, both by first-round subs. However, Kiefer Crosby and Johan Lainez, the questionable competition, we got to make sure we make note of that. Obviously, those were kind of layup fights. Definitely called both finishes. I love this kid. He was promoted to BJJ black belt very recently. I think just before the Kiefer Crosby fight is when that promotion took place, and he puts that black belt to work. He's got these long, lanky arms. He's got those front chokes, anacondas, triangles. Like, you're never safe from this kid on the ground. But the one big knock on him, questionable durability. Very, very questionable durability. Now, that all happened at 155 pounds. This guy was killing himself to get down to 155 pounds. Since moving up to 170, he's looked a whole lot better. But again, we've got a whole 4 minutes of fight time to go off of. He took a couple shots from Kiefer Crosby, and it did look like he wore those shots pretty well, but that's not really testing the chin enough for me to get super excited about him. I'm still a little worried about the durability for him. But I mean, this kid's like white Jalen Turner up at 170 pounds. Like he likes to fight long. He likes to beat you up at range. And then when you close the distance, he gets you to the ground. And once you're on the ground, it's his world. So I'm excited about him. I think there's lots of ways to make money with Sam Patterson, especially when he gets the right types of matchups. I'm just not sure that left hand to God is the right kind of matchup. Now, if Danny Barlow is not quite ready for this grappling game, if he's not quite ready to face this kid on the ground, Sam can tie him into a pretzel. Don't get it twisted. Like, Sam absolutely can wreck this guy on the mat, but I'm not sure he gets it there. I'm not sure he can take that left hand. And with the tall man's defense, the way he kind of leans out of range, the long looping arms of Danny Barlow, like, I'm just worried he's going to get toppled over, man. I am very, very tempted to just blind click Sam Patterson inside the distance at whatever that number is going to be, because it should be pretty big. That's his way to win this fight. The sub prop, that'd be the way to go. I'm going to pick Danny Barlow to win. Unfortunately, I think the durability issues kind of raise their ugly head here a little bit for Sam, and Danny goes ahead and sends him to God with the left hand. What do you make of this fight, Art? What are you doing?
Yeah, I pretty much agree here. Like Danny Barlow, I call him a sniper, a southpaw sniper. That left hand is so fast. He likes to throw it. He like a step back left hand counter as well. He has a nice long jab as well, and he throws the inside low kicks against orthodox, right? So he throws the high kick as well. Most of his finish is coming from that left hand, and sometimes he throws it more of a slapping motion, but it does definitely have some power on it. He's very fast, right? When he got into fighting, he seems to be somewhat of a one-dimensional fighter. I haven't seen much tape of him in terms of submission defense or off of his back, so it could be a path for Patterson if he gets the fight down to the ground. But Barlow's going to prefer to keep the fight standing at range. He's going to keep in kicking range majority of the fight, and like I said, he's going to work the inside low kick. He's going to work that high kick. It's going to be southpaw versus orthodox here, so that left hand in a southpaw versus it makes so much different. It's the rear hand of the fighters, right? And Patterson doesn't really have a nice straight right, but Barlow has the crisp straight left. I think that's going to be a big deal here. So you talked about Patterson used to fight at lightweight at 6'3". He had a huge reach for that division. I think he won a lot of the fights because of the reach. He just has this tendency, this tall man defense, where he just stands back, his head's up high, and just the guys can't really fight him, get to him. He got knocked out by Yanal Azmouz. Patterson had a 10-inch reach advantage in that fight, and Yanal Azmouz closed the distance, landed out, and he went out cold. I think he was out before he hit the ground. So his striking defense has always been an issue for me. I cannot get to a Patterson side because he's so open to the counters. And like you said, that was at 155. He's moving up to 170 where they hit so much harder. And he fought in Toronto against Johan Lunes. I was there. I was big on Lunes as well because he has that overhand right. He just never threw it. And Johan Lunes came in, he clinched, and then Patterson able to work the clinch, get the submission in round number one. Same thing, Kiefer Crosby submission in round number one. We didn't get to see him take a punch in round number at 170, right? And these guys hit so much harder at 170. And Danny Barlow's the like, if you're gonna pick somebody to fight him, you need a straight left down the middle with power and speed. That's what Danny Barlow has. So for me, it's going to be like I said, southpaw versus orthodox. Patterson's going to try. What he tends to do is he tries to do these low kicks and these high kicks against southpaws, and he has somewhat of a lazy kick, right? And what I think is Barlow's going to try to counter that naked kick with a straight left down the middle. So I can see he just hands down. He's going to throw, and then he's going to get starched with a straight left down the middle. Patterson's used to be long and lanky, but Barlow's long and lanky as well. It's not like he's a guy there, right? So he doesn't need. I think he has a reach.
He's massive.
Yeah,
like for a guy that came up a weight class, he's still just towering over people at 170. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think Danny Barlow goes to the kicks early. Both guys going to throw those kicks, but I think Barlow's going to find his spot to counter the kick, and he'll find a home for that left hand right there. And like I said, the southpaw versus orthodox is huge. Smaller cage for Danny. Danny wants the outside of the cage to try to pick his spots, but I don't think it's a big deal for him. Like I said, you can hedge on Patterson submission, like you said, if he gets down to the ground. The Barlow submission defense, somewhat of an unknown, but striking wise, Barlow's all over this guy. I don't really see Sam Patterson landing him on the feet, really hurting him. It's all Barlow striking. So Patterson's going to have to get this fight down to the ground. He's going to have to do it early, or otherwise the leg kick's going to get rocked, or he's going to get rocked. So I think it's going to be Barlow. I have him to win by knockout.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page here on that one, man. He's capable of winning a decision, I would say, but the way
Yeah.
these two guys fight, I feel like they're both all team violence as well. Fight doesn't go the distance is minus 400. I
Yeah.
feel like we're gonna see probably around one finish, no matter who ends up getting it in this fight, because the first one to slip up is going to be in hot water here. Fun fight. Should be violent as long as it lasts. Shout out Uncle Weezy. What's going on, buddy? I'm very upset at you, though, my friend. We're fighting Wheezy because his ass shaving of the week was none other than Alonzo Minifield. So we went head to head on this split decision here, and I was not happy about losing that one with my boy Juicebox. So don't you worry, we'll get that one back. All right, everybody. Next up, we've got William Gomis, and he takes on Hyder Amil, the freaking Hurricane himself. Art, I got to tell you, I thought Hyder Amil was a flash in the pan. I thought this guy was, he is. He's old. At 10-0, that's not a lot of experience, especially at 34 years old. That's a bit too old to be a prospect. This is the kind of guy that I'm like, okay, like, congratulations, you made it to the UFC. That's great. I'm happy for you as a person. But there's no way you're going to swim once you get here, right? Like, he's too old. He's too chaotic. He's all team violence. One of these guys is going to catch him. He goes for these crazy submissions, and he always loses position and falls off. And I'm just like, someone's going to get to round 2, and he's going to get tired and slowed. And nope, hasn't happened. Hasn't happened yet. Now, Fernie Garcia, Jong Young Lee, the jury's still out on Jong Young Lee. But we know these road to the UFC fighters, they're just not all they're cracked up to be. So, not so shocking in hindsight that he won that fight. Fernie Garcia, not very good. But the crazy thing about Fernie is he's durable as all get out. Nobody's ever finished this guy before. And Hyder Amil put him out. And that's not something anybody does. It was very, very impressive the way he just stayed on this guy. The offensive output from Hyder Amil is something that you cannot underrate. He is the Hurricane, very aptly named the Hurricane. He lives up to that moniker. I still in the back of my soul think somebody who's able to survive the striking exchanges when they get it to the ground, when they mix in the grappling, like this guy just knows one direction and that's forward, and he falls off. He makes mistakes grappling. He's going to end up putting himself in bad positions. He's going to end up under somebody he shouldn't. And that's going to be the death knell. That's going to be the end for him because he won't be able to keep up this crazy pace. But it hasn't happened yet. William Gomis, 14-2. Kid is 27 years old, and he really has kind of been on a bit of a rocket ship. He seemed almost like one of those fighters that gets signed because they're the local flavor, right? They go out to Paris, they go out to France, and they get this kid on the card, and it's like, all right, fine, like, give him a crack. But he's on a 4-fight win streak so far in the UFC, and his last fight, his most impressive win by far, even though it was a split decision, it was over Anderson Brito. I didn't think he was going to beat Anderson Brito. Like, that was a crazy performance for him, man. His pocket awareness, his ability to roll, his head movement, like, he's fast, he's athletic. The one real knock I've got on William Gomis is that he's just not physical enough. I think he's going to get bullied around the cage by some people, and that's something I think Hyder Amil can do. He ended up on bottom against Anderson Brito because Anderson just said, no, get down. Like, you know what I mean? He just kind of ripped him to the floor, and there wasn't a damn thing that William Gomis could do about it. So this is almost like he's running back the same fight. Like Hyder Amil and Anderson Brito, similarly chaotic. It seems a lot like the same fight again. Price, very, very different. Gomis is now the minus 200 favorite in this spot, with Hyder Amil being a plus 170 underdog. Gomis the kind of guy that I feel like we can make money on. We actually have bet him a couple of times here on this show in his run here in the UFC. Not last time, but some of his earlier ones, the Giannis Grimoire fight, the Fire Marshal fight. So I think you can make money on William Gomis. I like the improvements. I like the direction the kid is going. But, man, I just really don't want to get in front of Hyder Amil at a minus 200 price tag. I'm not sure. Gomis, I think his only path to victory, in my opinion, here is a decision. He's going to have to stay safe from the chaos of Hyder Amil for a full 15 minutes. And I'm just not so sure he can. What do you make of this fight, Art? Talk to me, man.
I love it. Yeah. Hyder, I like these brawler type fighters, and he's that guy. He's like Pepe. We talked about Chepe. He's always coming forward. He's always throwing power shots. He does whatever he can do to do damage, and he prioritizes damage over anything else, right? So you talked about falling off. It's because he's looking for damage, right? He's not looking for control. He's not the best technical striker, but he just throws power and he throws heat. In his 2 UFC fights, he averages 64 strikes thrown in round number one, 80 in round number two, and he's landed 41 in round number one and 40 in round number two. It's some crazy volume. He just wants to throw and he wants to knock your head off, right? He attacks the head at 85% of the time, and he has a striking accuracy of 55% striking accuracy. So pretty good. Right. And his defense is pretty good at 30% head strike defense. So he just comes forward. He has relentless pressure. He doesn't care if you're going to take him down. He has shown good takedown defense, though, good hips, good balance. Does the right things, I think, when he's terms of trying to get off his back and trying to avoid the takedowns. When it goes back to striking, he's still going to throw those bigger shots, right? And so he'll fight from southpaw, a lot of kicks to the inside kicks, outside kicks, kicks to the body, and that check right hook from southpaw he likes a lot. So he's always on the front foot throwing. He'll throw some off strikes within the first 2 seconds. He's going to throw something. He's just as soon as you say go, he's on the front foot and he's not going to back down, right? So I think he looks pretty impressive so far. He's undefeated at 10-0. We saw him get stuck in a rear naked choke, but he did a good job of fighting out of it. He showed some good takedown defense. I went back and watched that Emrah Sanmez fight. He only allowed 5 takedowns on 23 attempts, and that went to decision. His cardio into the later rounds were pretty good, considering there was a lot of grappling. Emrah's tried 23 takedown attempts on him and couldn't get him down, right? So the cardio, it's a question, but I think he addressed it in that fight, and he's outlanded all 3 of his UFC opponents by a large margin, right? We talked about those average strikes per round. He outlanded Lee by 38 strikes. That was a 1-minute fight. Right, so he just has volume. He just continues to throw, right, and he just bites down on the mouthpiece, and he looks like he has a decent chin. Whereas William Gomis, he's like your typical French kickboxer. He wants to be somewhat technical. Wants to be at range. He's content with staying on the outside and just trying to pick you apart at range. His last 3 wins were split decision wins, right? And his win over Gamori was because of a body kick, right? So he's going to be on the circle. He's going to be on his bike. He's going to be circling around the warning track almost all fight. I don't think I saw many times where he fought a southpaw. I think Gamori switched to southpaw at one point, and then Gomis looked for the high kick. But remember, this fight's at the apex, which favors Amil, right? Amil's going to want to track him down. Gomis doesn't have the amount of space to really move and throw those kicks like he wants to. Amil, in your face, we talked about how hard it is to kick moving backwards, and Amil doesn't stop coming forward, right? So, I like Amil here as the dog. I favor him in the striking and the power shots. I think I favor the chin, the overall visuals of him just coming forward. I think he's going to land bigger shots, right? This goes back to the very first fight where you're just throwing volume, and you hit them, you don't hit them. The volume of the bigger shots do wonders on the judges' scorecards. And Gomis doesn't have punching power, right? Like, he has a nice jab. He's very technical, but he doesn't have a lot of power in his hands, right? So I go back to the Charles Johnson Temirov fight. It's very similar in that type of style, where Gomis is probably the more technical striker. He's better technique and stuff, but it's the styles make fights sort of thing. And Gomis, Amil just on the front foot, always in your face, doesn't give Gomis time to breathe and really get into space, not fight the way he wanted. Brito did the same thing in that fight. I know he ended up losing the fight, but there was a lot of grappling in that fight. I don't think there's going to be as much grappling here. But Brito was on the front foot, and he didn't really seem comfortable, Gomis, fighting off of the back foot. He relied on the grappling, which he doesn't normally do, right? He's a French kickboxer, and he's trying to grapple with Brito, right? So he didn't like that forward pressure. So I think Amil as an underdog is actually not a bad play. Like you said, Gomis has a lot of his equity is pretty much a decision win, and he has to outpoint Amil without getting hit. Right, he has to fight almost the perfect fight where he's on the outside, stick and move, avoid stick and move. A lot of like just touch so that he doesn't get hit. He has to do that for 15 minutes without getting cracked, or some kind of like grappling exchanges where he gets a better position and stuff, right? I just think all the upside is on the Amil side, and I think I got him at plus 195. I like that. I think I might be able to get a dog price on William Gomis, maybe live and stuff. So I like these 4 dogs, that come up blitz. If he gets the first round finish, I'm good. If he doesn't, or he starts to slow down, then I'll start to look at a Gomis live position. But Gomis does just like I said, I think I had Gomis against Brito because of that striking battle. But he was, like you said, a 265 favorite, 265 dog in that fight. Now he's a big favorite on this fight, and he just doesn't have the winning margins to separate to really cover that price, especially in a striking match, unless Hyder just falls off a cliff in terms of cardio, and then he can win the later rounds, right? So I think it's Hyder early. I think he's going to land. I think just visually it's him. So I like him definitely here as the underdog.
Okay. Yeah, man. I think this is if it gets to round 3, Gomi probably wins round 3, right? Just based off of the assumption that Hyder has to slow down eventually. But Hyder's gonna win round 1, right? It could come down to that swing round of round 2. Seems like a very live dog spot. Chad Dom Cruz. This guy's been incredible. He's very Dreykus Duplessis-esque to me, just very physical, very beastly. I want to see him get tested later in the fight. This will be very interesting to see how this goes. The one last thing I want to say before we move on from this fight, man, the year of cooked undefeated prospects. Hyder is 10-0, you guys, and that I haven't met a prospect that kept their O so far in 2025. So I'm just be careful out there betting undefeated fighters. At least he's the dog. At least you're not being asked to lay a minus 350 price tag on him. At least you're getting a plus 160, plus 170 rooting for Hyder Amil. I'm with you. I see value on the dog side of things. I want to go back and dig and maybe look at some of those older fights that went a little bit longer and see about his pace and his pressure. But I agree that it should just be Hyder. Hyder early for certain. I'm just worried about the fight getting extended if he can't quite get that finish. So, maybe you look at a round 3 prop for William Gomi. I know everybody's going to have the decision prop. Dog or pass, man. Dog or pass for me. All right, guys. Next fight. We've got Austin Lane taking on Mario Pinto, UFC newcomer, undefeated Mario Pinto. And I just talked about undefeated fighters art. This guy making his debut. And he's getting Austin Lane, the biggest softball the UFC can offer at heavyweight. And guys, I'm still not over it. I'm still not over my Robelis to Spain parlay getting destroyed by Austin Lane. I mean, it's one of those things that's just going to sting for a little bit because it was all there. It was obvious the UFC was setting him up to get the win. It was obvious they're giving him the biggest softball they can. It was obvious that he had an athletic and a speed advantage. All he had to do was just be able to get up once or twice, and he couldn't even do that. It was so bad the UFC cut him immediately. They were like, you're going to lose to this guy? Yeah, we're done here. Thanks, bro. See ya. Austin Lane is not UFC caliber. This guy is a one and done round 1 brawler. He showed wrestling, I guess, against Robelis to Spain. That's not something he's really got in his toolkit. That's not something we're going to regularly see from Austin Lane. He'll be able to lean on it and go to it all the time. He's not a guy that can extend a fight, generally speaking. He's a car crash professional. He wins and loses every single fight within the first 2 minutes of it. That's all this guy's got, right? He's either going to touch you or you're going to touch him, and that's all it comes down to. Mario Pinto, 26 years old, very exciting UFC prospect, coming off Dana White's Contender Series. And again, if this was a couple years ago, Dana White's Contender Series fade angle, very quickly, very easy, very obvious. I am never betting on Austin Lane, you guys. I know he ruined my night last time out. I am not giving him the benefit of the doubt. I am not going back to him as an underdog and giving him a shot here. I know undefeated fighters are losing their O's left and right. Pinto is probably very overhyped after landing a big shot on Contender Series. I'll give you that. But I still think he's going to touch Austin Lane before Austin Lane touches him. That's all it comes down to. This kid is fast. He's built like a middleweight. He's going to be really quick at heavyweight. And I think with that kind of upside, with the youth, he's not a busted 40-year-old man that hasn't learned how to grapple. He'll actually be working on his MMA game. It's Pinto by knockout for me, man. What do you got here?
Did you know anybody that had Austin Lane by decision over Robelis?
Of
It was
course,
this guy.
there was always somebody posting a ticket, some
It was this guy.
rando on Twitter.
No, it was not random. It was this guy.
I know I'm messing with you.
Yeah, yeah. There was a clear path for Austin Lane, and he took it, right. And it was easy, right. It just why strike with a kickboxer when you can take him down and land on him, right. So
I didn't think he could stick to it. I was like, I know he's gonna shoot, right? I didn't think he could stick to it for 15 minutes.
Yeah. So so for Mario Pinto, I'm getting some fraud vibes. I'll be honest, right? So he's looked very unimpressive to me on tape. He looks very average to me. He looks just like he's sparring. He's out there sparring high guard. He's just throwing jabs and leg kicks. There was one regional fight again. I think it was against Haqparast. It was a 5-round fight. The announcer, I think it's something Black. Robin Black was trying to talk about the speed and power of Pinto. He's talking about how Pinto's slow, throwing these punches slow on purpose so that his opponent's off by the timing, and then later on he's going to throw faster. It's like, no, he just throws slow. He just has a slow jab, and he looks like he's sparring and stuff, right? And Robin Black's trying to like give him an excuse. He's like, he's gonna pick it up in round 4. He's gonna really throw harder in round 4, but he just doesn't, right? And he stays calm for the most part. His mouth is closed. He just stand there, pop jabs, pop outside low kicks. He doesn't really look to grapple or clinch much. If you have a chance, go back and watch the Benjamin Sekic fight. He wins by third round KO. That was horrible. Sekic is like a monster BJJ guy. He's huge. He's like open arms running at the guy. Kind of looks like my kids when I pick him up from school. Dad, like open, like trying to hug him and stuff. He gassed within the first 30 seconds. And Pinto could not put this guy away until the end of the 3rd round. You're telling me he's going to put away Austin Lane? Like, he had no business going past, the first minute. And Pinto just let him off the hook because he doesn't throw volume. There's not a ton of power behind his shots, and he goes outside low kick. He'll keep a high guard. He'll protect himself from the punches coming back. He'll pop jabs in your face, and then he'll load up on the outside low kick when he's throwing. When he has that high guard, right? And he talked about Dana White Contender Series. He showed the same thing against Camacho. He stood there, a lot of stick and moving, feeling. And then as soon as Camacho came in, he just threw this like little tiny check left hook, boop, and then Camacho won down and he won. So now we're getting a crazy price tag on Mario Pinto, but the book's not out on him. Like, nobody knows that, everybody thinks he's this like wonder. I think most of it's a fade on Austin Lane, if I'm being honest. But I want to say Austin Lane's a step up in competition for Mario Pinto, and Mario Pinto's a step down in competition for Austin Lane. Like, I know Austin Lane looks shit against actual UFC fighters, but I don't think Mario Pinto's this guy. Maybe I haven't seen it on tape. Maybe if you guys can tell me how his training looks and stuff like that, right? He finds ways to win. He took the Bellis to decision. Denise, he survived those shots until round 2. And then Justin Taffa has power, of course. He's knocking people out and stuff, right? Ridiculous power. It's understandable that happens, right? So I think the both guys are going to open up orthodox. I think they're going to stare at each other for a while. I think it's going to be a low volume exchange. Both guys are going to try to trade jabs and kicks. I don't think Austin Lane's going to push a pace if he doesn't have to. He's content. He's worried. You talked about his cardio and stuff like that. If he can make the 15-minute fight a 5-minute fight with not doing much and just standing out there, I think he will. And again, Pinto's not the one to push a pace either. He's not going to be in your face brawling. It's just jabs and outside low kicks, So he's going to protect himself. He throws the high guard to protect the damage coming back. He stays very calm. Cardio is not really an issue. He's gone 5 rounds there, right? So if Lane's afraid of gassing, he's just going to take the path of least resistance, fire back, throw some big shots there. I haven't really seen Pinto grapple. I don't know what his grappling game looks like. His clinch game looks like. A lot of unknowns and stuff here, but I'm not laying 370 on this guy. He looks complete fraud for me. For me, it's dog or pass for Austin Lane. And I did play if you guys want. I took the over 1.5. I know you're not going to like it because you're thinking that.
I love greasy heavyweight overs. Yeah. I love it.
Just just what I've seen on tape from Pinto, he just doesn't push a pace at all. I think he could go over. I think he could go to decision. It could be my prediction in the fight is Mario Pinto by decision. I think he could jab his way to a decision and not hurt him. But it's either dog or pass or taking a total. And if I'm taking a total, it's the over there. Nothing's really impressed me from the Pinto side. I know what I'm getting with Austin Lane. He's not great, but he's not horrible, is all I'm trying to say.
No, I hear you. And he's a big time athlete, right? A guy that used to play
Yeah,
in the he got drafted what by the Jaguars or something. He played in the
yeah.
NFL for a bit.
He
So
just
like,
has power. Like he has power. He's big and strong, right? He could just bully the guy. I just haven't seen anybody do it to Pinto, right? And just nothing really impressive from him.
yeah, yeah, no, that's totally fair, man. Totally fair. I am again, these are the type of prospects and the type of favorites I just stay away from. I'm just gonna pass because he should win. The UFC wants him to win. They're building him up to win. Austin
But
Lane is a nobody, but Austin Lane pulls the upset, and this is a big step up in competition. And these kids, they're just getting rushed, man. The UFC's throwing them in there and expecting them to be ready. They're not all ready. Some of them
yeah,
need a little bit of seasoning. Some of them need to go the Mason Jones route and go hang out in Cage Warriors for a couple extra years and then come back. I don't know if this kid is ready or not, right? I lost money on Juicebox Walker last week because I thought he was ready. And, I do think he's ready actually, but he lost his UFC debut, which a lot of fighters do. So I respect it. I just don't have the size of the balls that you do to put my money on Austin Lane here for this fight. So
I'll give you a question.
congratulations.
I'll give you a question. If Mario Pinto gets fraud checked and Austin Lane starches him round one, what's his line going to be the next time he fights? You're going to get like +4. You're not going to get a chance to fade him anymore, right? This is
Yeah.
the time to fade him. The book's out on Lane. Everybody's just fading Lane, and Pinto's not there. I don't know how you get to -370, 400 stuff, right? So I don't want to miss the
I
boat and be able to fade him, and then now he's like +900 in the next fight. So I'll put a little bit of a sprinkle on Lane, and then I like the over.
I don't blame you, man. It's so funny though. Even like in our my own chat right here, there's only two options for these fighters. They're either the best prospect you've ever seen and they're a future top 10 guy, or they're the biggest fraud you've ever seen in your life. Like nobody can like wrap their brain around like he's an okay 26-year-old kid. And there's probably some upside, but maybe he's not a champion. It's like everyone's got such a plant their flag before they ever get to the UFC that it's like best prospect of all time, or he sucks, he's terrible. It's really funny how we get the split on these types of fighters coming off Dana White's Contender Series. All right, guys, do me a favor, please. Like button if you haven't already. Share the show out if you're on social media. Would definitely go a long way and would appreciate it. Next up, you've got Nasrat Haqparast, and he's taking on El Gringo Esteban Ribovics. Art, I think Ribovics may be my new favorite fighter. Like, I think he's going to be one of my absolute new favorite fighters, and I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people I think that are on the Ribovics train at this point in time. I was a little too chicken to pull the trigger on him at the Sphere when he took on Daniel Zellhuber. That was a hell of a fight. Back and forth, could have gone either way. I think, probably right side got the nod there, but it was just a banger. I love the way this kid fights. And it's funny because we've seen him have nothing but just raw power, right? He goes in there and he head kicks Terrence McKinney. He's got huge, big overhooks. Winging overhands, big, powerful hooks. Like all this guy does is want to rip your body, rip your head off. And it's obvious he's got power to go with it too. But then when he gets a guy like Zellhuber, he takes a little off those punches and he puts up over 100 significant strikes in a full 15-minute performance in enemy territory. Like that's the kind of evolution you want to see from a kid like this, that you're like, oh, so you're not just a round one banger. You're not just a guy that needs to go out and get a quick finish. You can finesse. You can work your way past a range disadvantage. You can get in there on a guy who's very, very dangerous with knees and elbows, and you can find a way to touch this guy, even with all the disadvantages that you've got. Nice footwork, way to roll with it. He's been chin checked. I love this kid. I love everything about Esteban Ribovics. I think he's going to be around for a long, long time, and I'm very excited to see how high he can go. Nasrat Haqparast, very similarly, we kind of thought about this kid not too long ago. 17-5. He's 29 years old, training out of TriStar. He's a UFC staple at this point. He's been here basically forever. The only thing that I kind of am having an issue with Nasrat is it seems like the UFC has tried to push him twice. Not once, twice. And he's flopped in both of those opportunities. They gave him Drew Dober a couple years ago. And Drew took this kid out back. Like it was done. It was over. Pasted him, said, thanks for playing, kid. Sit back down. They gave him a little bit of time, and then they gave him another shot, and they gave him Dan Hooker and Bobby Green. And he failed in both of those attempts too. So now I feel like they're viewing Nasrat Haqparast as almost a busted prospect. He fought very closely in his last fight with Jared Gordon. This kid can literally put up 200 significant strikes over the course of a fight. He is a volume machine. Very fast hands, very accurate punches, but he doesn't have a lot on them. Now, I was savvy enough to play him by knockout against Jamie Malarkey. Fade on Jamie Malarkey's chin, right? Jamie Malarkey, no durability. Anybody who's got any durability, anybody who's got any ability to withstand a fight is going to be able to survive Nasrat's offense. And Jared Gordon had him hurt multiple times in that last fight. I actually think these high volume damaging type of fights are starting to wear on Nasrat Haqparast. This number seems like maybe a little aggressive for a guy who's relatively new and really hyped like Esteban. I'm buying, man. I think he's the goods. I like Esteban Ribovics in this spot. I think you're going to get some dog plays on Nasrat Haqparast this week, and it won't be me. What about you, man? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I like Ribovics as a fighter. Like, there's a couple of these dogs that just on this card that just continue just brawl and just come forward with power and stuff. Like, and I was actually big on him against Zellhuber. He showed in the tape that he just has no quit on him, and he's able to close the distance on Zellhuber, who has long range striking there. I was big on Ribovics. I took him by decision, I believe. Took him live betting as well, just because he comes into the later rounds there, and I cashed huge on him though. But he was plus 180, plus 190 in that fight, and now he's again minus 250 here. Haqparast not a nobody on the ground, right? And I think we're getting a little bit of recency bias in the price, and I'll sort of explain why, right? So Ribovics, we talked about, he's a distance striker, 91% of strikes coming from a distance. He will have a 3-inch disadvantage, but he's been fighting through the disadvantages all the time there. Mainly a boxer. He only has a 14% kick rate and a 4% rear low kick there, right? So mostly hands for Ribovics. 84% head target accuracy at 44% accuracy, 36% head strike defense. We talk about his volume, and Ribovics just throws incredible volume, and it increases as the rounds go on. He gets better as the fight goes on. So he lands 28 strikes in round number 1, 42 in round number 2, and 56 in round number 3. So if he's not going to get him out in the first round there, in the later rounds, definitely can pick up for Ribovics. And he likes to be on the front foot, right? Just like Hyder, Amil, he likes walking his opponent down. He does have experience with the longer reach that I talk about, and he really sits down on those power shots, right? And but again, this one's a different fighter. Nasrat's like a UFC veteran, like you said, a TriStar. I think he fights southpaw. 78% of his wins coming from decision, 70% of his losses coming from decision, 88% distance striker overall. And he goes to the target 85% with 40% accuracy, right? And his head strike defense is actually pretty good at 29% head strike defense. So he doesn't have the ton of power. I think he has 7 offensive knockdowns. He's been knocked down once, so he does have volume, and that does go up as well. So round number 3 is going to be pretty crazy in terms of the volume strikes. I did want to note here, I look back, 10 out of 11 Nasrat's fights has had over 90% striking time. And I think that continues here. I think it's going to be striking for almost the full 15 minutes. If Ribovics can't get him out of there, then I think these guys fly over their significant strike totals. Like I said, the smaller cage does favor Ribovics, the more compact guy, but Nasrat's not a bum. He has volume as well. He can come out into the later rounds, right? So it's going to be orthodox versus southpaw. It's going to be mainly a striking battle. Ribovics is going to be on the front foot coming forward. Nasrat's probably going to be on the back foot. Ribovics has a really good chin, and we saw that in the Zellhuber fight. And Nasrat, I don't really think does big damage. Ribovics is going to have the bigger moments, and Nasrat's going to be more technical. He's going to be the more technical fighter, right? And he's going to be striking for most of that time, right? So Ribovics as a dog, I get it because he's just a dog and he fights. But Ribovics as a minus 300 favorite, I'm like iffy about. I can't really lay the juice because, like I said, he's going to need those big moments there. I think split decision is possible. It's going to come down to minutes versus moments. If it goes split, I'd rather have Nasrat at plus 210 than Ribovics at minus 250, right? I'm not counting out. I'm picking Ribovics to win. I think he wins the decision, but the number I think is a little bit wide. I think I have half a unit on Nasrat, and I might change it up there, but I'm not confident. I think Ribovics is probably the side. I just think the number is wide. That's all.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, I can absolutely get behind the thought process that this number is a little bit wide. That makes perfect sense to me. And what the bookies are kind of forcing us to do these days is if you don't think the underdog wins, you got to chalk up, right? Like they're just making these lines far wider than they should be because of the historic rates we were seeing of favorites hitting. So I think you got to pay a little bit of a price, but I'm gonna roll with the gringo, man. I do think that the favorite is probably the right side, maybe a close fight. I expect that visually speaking, I think he's gonna hurt Nasrat a couple of times, and that can swing a couple of these rounds. And that's how I think he gets it done. I'm with you. I think it's a volume fest. Should be fun. Hoping for a finish. I'm not sure exactly how I want to play it just yet, whether it be like a decision prop or throwing him in a parlay. You know, that minus 250 range is very enticing for a 2-leg parlay. But when it could go to a split decision, you got to be aware that you're kind of playing with fire when you get in those kind of situations. All right, guys. Can't believe I'm saying this. Your co-main event of the evening.
It's time.
Cody Brundage takes on Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Marquez. Still one of the best names in all of MMA, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh boy, where to start? So I'm all team Cody Brundage. You guys know this, right? Like you cashed an Austin Lane decision. But I cashed a Cody Brundage round 1 KO, TKO, or DQ.
I got that too.
So,
I got that too. From the DQ, yeah, I got that too.
I thought I was going to get even. You got to one up me there. No, man, it was, I tell everybody, I spam Cody Brundage round 1. Make sure you're playing on a book that has the DQ included. I almost got it again, man. They were so sick of his shit. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, I don't know what the deal is. People do not know how to avoid the back of this dude's head. Like they just always, he shells up and he does a good job of like covering the sides of his head, like with his giant shoulders and biceps. Yeah. And instead of finding another avenue to strike, people are just like, all right, bro, boom. And then they get called for it. It's like, that's the only foul. They won't call for eye pokes, but they'll call you for an elbow to the back of the head. Thank God. So it's not even Cody's fault that this keeps on happening to him. Realistically, he should lose these fights via submission or TKO in 5-6 minutes, but they keep punching him in the back of the head. That's not his fault. So it's pretty hysterical that it keeps on happening. I think this fight will not end up in that situation. Julian Marquez, 9-5, 34 years old. My God, he's got to be done, man. His chin is toast. Gregory put such a beating on this guy. And you got to give props to Marquez because he tries to stay in every fight. He recovers pretty quickly and he swings back. So the referees always give him a minute. And it's almost the worst thing that could ever happen to him because he will swing and he swings wild and then he eats 4 or 5 more shots and then he swings again and he misses. And then he eats 4 or 5 more shots. And he just kind of zombies around the cage. He's been knocked out 3 times by Gregory Rodriguez, but somehow he's still on his feet and then nail in the coffin, right? Then you finally get that big shot that puts him down for good. Those are the kinds of life-changing beatings that will just ruin a man. And same thing with the Marc-Andre Barrios fight. The referee gave him a chance, and that fight could have been stopped 2 minutes sooner. He ate so much unnecessary damage. It was a standing TKO, but it's just repeated trauma to the head. Zach Reese barely touched him. I mean, he swings an upper hand, an upper hand. Jeez, a right hand uppercut and just clips him, just barely clips him. And you see the eyes roll. It's like there is nothing there. The beard isn't doing him any good. There's no protecting that chin, man. Cody Brundage, I want to make the argument should be favored here. I know a lot of people are seeing the same thing I am. Cody being an underdog. I really think it's that, fuck Cody Brundage public perception of how could you ever make this guy a favorite. But at the end of the day, these guys are both relatively low-level bangers, and one of them can take a punch. Now, one of them's got no chin, and the other one's got the quits. We know Cody like the back of our hand here, man. He's a decently strong wrestler. He likes to jump that guillotine. He's got a real tight squeeze on him. He's got serious power. I mean, you've seen it. When he does actually let loose, this guy has got some very serious man strength going on. So I really feel like this comes down to, can Cody Brundage land on Julian Marquez? Even if he shells up and he fires back once, that could still be the end of the fight. All it's going to take is one to put this version of Julian Marquez down. Now, Julian's gone out to train at the MMA lab actually here in Arizona. So maybe he gets on some supplements that helps that chin a little bit. Maybe we're looking at a grappling game plan where instead of banging it out, he comes and he looks for takedowns. But again, Cody early on is a pretty good wrestler. Defensively, pretty solid. He eventually gives up on himself. He is such a confidence fighter that as soon as you see the wind go out of his sails, he will quit on himself in that cage. So I don't know that anybody should really be betting this fight too seriously, just because both guys can let you down at literally any moment. The sneaky look that I think I have on this fight, depending on the number, would be Julian Marquez by submission, because you do see Cody Brundage just kind of shell up and give up these bad positions grappling when he takes a couple punches. If Julian can wrestle him, get on top of him, make him work a little bit, and then pop him with a couple of ground and pound shots, I don't think he'll get him out of there with ground and pound. And I think he'll be smart enough not to hit him in the back of the head. So I think he'll end up looking for some kind of a choke. And he does have a good club and sub game. We've seen that from Julian Marquez when he fights a lower level of competition. Club and sub is always something that he looked for back when he had some kind of durability working on him. Anaconda and Darce. I'm calling the Darce choke. Watch for the exact submission prop, because Cody does the thing where he blocks his ear, the side of his head like that. It's going to be perfectly set up for a front choke where Julian Marquez can sync up a Darce choke on this guy. But the reality is, I do actually think that it's Brundage by round 1 KO. Not the DQ this time, Art. I actually think he'll touch him on the chin and put him away, because Julian Marquez is just completely shot. So I'll say Brundage for the win. And I almost feel like it's on brand for me to actually like bet Cody Brundage, because I've done it so many times already.
I'm with you, man. I think we were together on the Cody Brundage round 1 KO against Bo Nickel, and that was like 100-1 or something. Do you remember that?
You were free rolling. You got to.
Yeah.
Just sprinkle.
You had to. So I get it here, and that's probably honestly the only way I'm going to play Brundage is round 1 Brundage there. I can't trust this guy, man. Like, you talked about the quitting, and he's looking for any outs, right? He can, like, he feels the power of Razak, and he's like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yep.
You know, he could have continued, sure, and a lot of fighters would have, but if you give him an out, he'll take it, right? And if you prod him in a submission, like you said, he might tap out or he might quit, right? So I think he's live within the first couple of minutes to starch him, right? Julian Marquez, I know what you're saying, his chin's gone, and he has 3 knockouts in a row, knockout losses in a row. I thought Zach Reese caught him clean with the right uppercut. Marc-Andre Barrios pushes guys to the second round all the time, and G-Rod, we just saw, he just has, he throws power and stuff, right? Understandable knockouts, but I just don't know how his chin's recovered since then, right? It's been just under a year. It's been about 8 months since that last Zach Reese knockout. If Julian Marquez had historically had a chin, he's been historically known for his chin, be able to take good strikes and stuff, right? So maybe it's a byproduct of just got caught 3 times in a row, or maybe his chin's completely gone. I don't know which it is, right? So I'm willing to sprinkle Brundage round 1 KO, because if it is gone, then I want part of that, right? But if it's not gone, and then Marquez can push this into the later rounds, we saw Brundage slow down, and he slowed down quite a bit when it gets out of round number 1, right? That's where Bo Nickel got the submission there. I think even against Tresean Gore, if he doesn't get that KO within the last couple of minutes around number 1, he's completely gassed in that fight as well, right? So
he'll put himself on bottom too. He jumps for that guillotine.
Yeah, that was completely like Cedric Dumas. He jumped guillotine like 8 times. Like, it's the fight IQ is completely gone, right? And you don't want to do that against somebody like Julian Marquez, right? You don't want to be on bottom. His ground and pound's there, his submission is there, right? So that's what I'm sort of looking at. I question, like, why is this even the co-main event? Who are they trying to promote, right? They're both on their way out there. Just talking about, Julian Marquez, he does like to clinch. He has 67% striking at a distance, but he does work the clinch as well at 21% there. And again, he's been known to have a granite chin, but some, father time's catching up to him a little bit, right? And then on the Brundage side, just the strength of schedule, just the way that he quits. I think he should be like 0-7 in the last. I think he should have 7 losses in a row. The Zach Reese slam is kind of fluky. He got caught in armbar and he slammed him there. You get a DQ win over Jacob Malkoun. You get the no contact. Abdul should have finished him. He should have been the loss too, right? Tresean Gore, if he doesn't get that finish there, he probably loses, right? So I don't really like anything with Cody Brundage. I can't play him as a straight dog. I can play him as a prop, like round 1 KO. And then I'm actually going to look at Julian Marquez round 2, round 3, because I do know that Cody Brundage slows down. And if he is going to brawl and go out all bro, he's going to slow down. If he's going to grapple, one thing against Julian Marquez, his takedown defense is awful. He got taken down 5 times to Maki Potolo, 4 times to Chirico, 4 times to Darren Stewart. He's allowed 13 takedown attempts on 23 attempts. And Cody Brundage is a better wrestler than those guys. He can get that fight down to the ground. But if Cody Brundage cannot finish Marquez on the ground in round number 1, what does he look like in round number 2 when the fight starts back on the feet? We're talking about Marquez's chin. If Brundage grapples and doesn't even actually strike with him and doesn't have the ability to actually like test his chin, yeah, he can lay on him for the first round, and then it gets to round 2, and then Brundage is completely like he's lost all the KO power in his hands, and then he's just a sitting duck against Marquez, right? So that's what I'm looking. I'm not confident on this side, but I think that's how the fight's going to play out. If Brundage grapples, then I'll look for Marquez live, or maybe those 2-3 props, round 1 KO for Brundage sort of thing. But I'm not looking to back either guy really with a lot of money here.
I think live bet is also on the table here. Because
Yeah.
especially if we do get in a scrambly situation where both guys are looking a bit tired, and if Julian Marquez looks like he's able to take a little bit of a punch again, I think he'll want it more as this fight extends. You might be able to get a good number on him, especially if Cody gets on top of him in round 1 and does a little bit of damage but doesn't get him out of there, that kind of thing. So yeah, man, I'm with you. I think this fight's very, very binary. Cody round 1, and then probably Julian Marquez sub round 2 or 3. Maybe live bet on Julian Marquez if that's the way that you want to look. But I have a hard time seeing this fight go the full 15 minutes just because of the way both guys are so flaky. And I've got to, man, why is Ribovics not the co-main event? Like,
Yeah.
why? How?
Why,
the
why-
world, there's no way this stays. They're gonna flex this out. This has got to move over the
Like
course.
who are they promoting here? Like, what
Yeah,
is it?
I mean,
I don't get it.
Julian Marquez is cooked, and as much as we like him, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Never even made it close to the contender circle. Like, how is he a co-main event if you're not promoting Brundage? And why are you promoting Brundage?
Yeah.
So it's crazy stuff, man. All right, main event, everybody. We've got Manel Kape taking on Asu Almabayev in a fight where you could definitely say that these are my guys, right? Asu Almabayev, a very underrated grappler who I spied when he got to the UFC, and we've been doing very, very well going to war with Asu Almabayev. Manel Kape, the guy who I burned tons of money on because I thought he'd be champion by the end of 2024. The UFC again putting him in a spot where with a big win, he could get that title shot that has been eluding him for so long. We've talked about Manel Kape until I'm blue in the face, man. He is a special athlete, but it all depends on what version of him shows up. Did he miss weight? Is he having an off day? Is he showboating a little bit too much? Like, all of these are very serious questions. This guy can give up a very boring, stare-heavy decision if he doesn't feel like going out there and getting a finish. He also can go out there and look like Anderson Silva and just take somebody's head off and be untouchable when he hits that flow state. He's so special when he's on. Now, I believe we will get chip on the shoulder Manel Kape again. I know that's a hard thing to say 2 fights in a row because usually it doesn't happen, but I really feel like he's on the hunt to prove to the UFC he belongs in the title picture again and go out there and take it and make sure they give it to him. Got to watch the scales. He has a history of not being able to make weight, but again, I think he's got that figured out at this point. So fingers crossed, we get angry Manel Kape on weight. Manel Kape. Asu Almabayev, 21 and 31 years old. I really like this kid. Easy win over Mateus Nicolau in the last fight, but coming in here in this fight on short notice, it's a big step up in competition. It's a really, really big step up in competition. CJ Vergara, Jose Johnson, Mateus Nicolau, the fraud in the bunch as far as the contenders goes, no chin whatsoever. And then you jump immediately to Manel Kape. They had him booked to fight Steve Ursig. That got shuffled because of injuries. Alan Nascimento was the next option. Now we're switching to Manel Kape. So, like, this guy's coming in here on short notice after preparing for 2 very different fighters. Now he's going to fight the most well-rounded of the 3, the most power of the 3. Like, I don't know if his game plan is going to work at all, if I'm being honest with you, Art. Like, Manel Kape's takedown defense, I know he's been taken down by some very impressive fighters, but he's got a 77% takedown defense rating. Like, his wrestling is not bad. He's very underrated on the ground. He's got an underrated submission game as well. And Asu still looks very uncomfortable on the feet. I mean, they damn near set a record for how few strikes were thrown in his Mateus Nicolau fight. When he finally let his hands go and clipped him, I'm not giving him credit for power. Like, Nicolau has no chin. So when he got touched, he went down. That's what happens with Mateus Nicolau. You're not hurting Manel Kape on the feet. And if this guy tries to go out there and box with Manel Kape on the feet, he's going to get lit up. He has to grapple. And I just don't know that in a short notice, 25-minute fight, he's going to be able to control Manel Kape the way somebody like Makayev did, cheating every step of the way for a full 25-minute fight. Man, I don't want to do it. I really don't. I'm tired of doing it and getting burned by it. But it's Manel Kape. Like, I really feel like this is a Manel Kape spot. What do you make of this fight?
All right, so strap yourself in. This is going to be a long one here, but there's a madness to this here. So, yeah. So you talked about the short notice stuff, right? But again, think about Manel Kape was scheduled to fight Brandon Royval, right? A completely different type of fight there, right? He's not training any takedown defense against Brandon Royval. Now he fights Asu, who again, who was in camp scheduled to fight on this card. So it's not really short notice. It's a different opponent, but
Sure.
I think it affects Manel Kape more because Asu's going to do what Asu does. He's going to grapple. So his game plan is going to stay the same. Whereas Manel Kape, it's completely different game plan. His stance switches are a little bit different. He has to watch what he's doing because he doesn't want to get taken down. Again, Royval doesn't pose that threat. So he had to make mid-camp adjustments. He's probably working on the takedown defense. So let me get this one started. Manel Kape, he is an elite distance striker. 91% of the strikes coming from a distance. Very accurate on the feet as well. 49% head strike accuracy. Very good. So 1 and 2 strikes are landing towards the head. He goes to the head at 77% of the time. He does very well at keeping range, keeping distance. 32% head strike defense, right? He can fight from both stances, orthodox and southpaw, and he uses those kicks pretty well to the outside low kick against an orthodox, and he will go to that quite often. He does have 6 knockdowns, so he has decent power in his hands, but one word to describe him is just he's very fast. I categorize him as a counter striker, and part of the reason that he's so fast is that he doesn't load up on his strikes. So he'll move back, he'll throw the strikes, but he's not sitting and planting and throwing a ton of power. You touched on the Nicolau one just going down. That's more Nicolau side, right? And so he likes to take the center of the cage. He lets his opponent circle around him on the outside and sort of waits for his opponent come to him. You touched on that in Nicolau round 1 as well. And he's sort of expecting you to overextend on your shots, and that's where he can step back, land a right-hand counter. He has very fast combos, multi-strike combos, and he mixes up the body and head strikes really well. You talked about his chin's very good as well. He's taken some big shots and really hasn't really been wobbled, right? So he's very technical striking. I probably favor Manel Kape over almost anybody in the division in a complete striking match, right? But we'll see sometimes Manel Kape will drop his opponents down to the ground. He puts zero effort in following his opponents to the ground. He doesn't really care about control. He'll do some damage. He'll jump into the guard to try to do some damage. But, at the end of the day, he wants to stand at range and fight standing, right? So one of Manel Kape's weaknesses, though, is his takedown defense. You talked about how good it is. I'm seeing it somewhat the other way. You talked about how he's allowed 7 takedowns on 46 attempts. Really good hips, really good base, good, decent sprawl, right? And I agree with that, especially when he pressures his opponent forward like up against the fence. He's expecting a shot back, so he'll even lower his stance a little bit because he has that forward pressure. And what do you do against the forward pressures? You try to go for a takedown. He's expecting it, so he can see those takedowns coming. He is a little bit lower in the stance, right? So he's been taken down 7 times in his UFC career. 2 of them was against Mateus Nicolau in the first round. He gave up 144 seconds of control. That one going to the end of the round, he did not get up out of that takedown. That was sort of a red flag. He gave up 2 takedowns against David Dvorak, and David Dvorak didn't really shoot a takedown. He more caught the kick, landed on top again. I think it was another 120 seconds of control time there. Mokaev really didn't shoot for a takedown until later on the fight. He did get him down once, I believe. But that one was a weird fight overall. There was some grappling exchanges. He does have 5 submission wins, and 3 of them coming from rear naked choke, 2 of them from armbar. But I don't really think he has many subs off the bottom, and I don't really think he's going to sub Asu here. So the other weakness I saw from Manel Kape is that, again, he's a counter striker. He's going to stand at the middle of the cage, and he's not going to walk you down and try to land damage. He's going to expect you to come to him. So there are times where his opponent, he just gives away round number 1 because he's just sort of standing there. He's just watching you, expecting you to come in. And if you don't, and if you try to point fight him, that you can sort of steal around without having to grapple. That's why Mokaev didn't have to grapple, is because Manel Kape never forced it. He just stood on the outside, kicks you at range, things like that, right? So Manel Kape can be slow starter in a 3-round fight. It's a big deal. 5-round fight, maybe not as big of a deal, but he's going to land the bigger shots. If it does stay standing, he's going to land the bigger counters. He has a chin to keep the fight standing, and I don't think Asu's going to put him out on the feet. He does a lot of flashy stuff, though. He likes a lot of the knees on the inside, jumping knees. Some of the takedowns that he's allowed are coming off of the jumping knees when he's getting caught and taken down right there. So he has to stay disciplined here. He can't give a takedown away to Asu because he's going to, ride with it, right? This sort of thing, right? And so on the Asu side, I like this kid as well. He sort of reminds me of Khabib Amarab, and not in that he's super high grappling, but he just the way that he chain wrestles, right? And he's a very typical wrestler. He starts on the feet, so he'll spam the kicks at range. He'll avoid the big shots. Manel Kape's not going to really be able to touch this guy. He'll throw these like big overhand rights at times, but it's really to set up the entry on the takedown. So he'll throw overhand right into a takedown attempt. What he tends to do is he tends to grab the single leg, and then from the single leg, he will either try to get the take you down, either turning the corner, dragging you down, things like that. But if he can't get the single leg, he'll push you up against the fence, and then he'll switch to a double leg against the fence, or he'll try to slip under, try to grab your back. And then from the back standing, he has a lot of these trip takedowns from the back, bring downs, things like that. So his chain wrestling, even though Manel Kape might defend the first takedown, if Asu can grapple with him and hold him, he's going to get to the back and he'll find a takedown eventually. Now, once on the ground, Asu's top control is elite. He does a very good job of keeping control, very good at keeping the space, limiting the space between you, and he does enough damage and action on the ground, ground and pound, either body, head sort of thing, to not get the referees to stand him up. I don't think I saw anybody really get up from underneath Asu. That's how good his elite top time is. So he'll work the body, he'll work the ground. One takedown usually means the round for Asu, unless you're willing to give up your back and shrimp and give up your back to get up. And then if you do give up your back, he's going to put the body triangle on you. He's going to work the rear naked choke. He has a bunch of rear naked choke submissions because that's his go-to. You could play submission, specific submission in rear naked choke and probably not lose there. I think he has 5 of the last 6 submissions were rear naked choke. So that's, if Kape gives up the back, he's going to take the back and he's going to choke you. And you go back and who was that fight? I think it was Ode Osborne. He didn't have the rear naked choke underneath the chin. He had it. It was a face crank. And he just has an incredible squeeze, sort of like Islam Makhachev, where he doesn't need to get specific. He just squeezes you enough and he can force you to tap, right? So if Asu gets the back, I can see the rear naked choke being very live. Again, the top position, if he gets any takedown, Manel Kape has shown that he will settle on the ground, right? And you talked about the takedown defense. Mateus Nicolau had a 90% takedown defense, and he still got taken down and controlled and stuff, right? So for me, it's the control thing, right? He gave up a lot of control as well. At a high level, this is going to look like a striker versus grappler, right? Asu's going to take the outside of the cage, circle around. In orthodox, Kape's going to stay in the middle of the cage. It's going to be a staring affair for a little bit. But as soon as Manel Kape tries to kick, Asu does this thing where he tries to catch the kick and he'll get you down. If he doesn't get the kick caught, then he'll shoot a takedown when you sort of overextend. And then, like I said, once he gets the takedown, the top control is there. So, Kape giving away early rounds. It is the smaller cage, remember? So this favors Asu in a smaller cage where he wants to grapple.
That's a good point.
Kape doesn't have the space to really move and move around. And Kape's not really the best footwork guy. He's a good striker, but he's not light on your feet. He's not bouncing in and out to avoid he's pretty stationary, and he throws the knees up the middle. If Asu can time that takedown, I think, again, early you're going to get a takedown. You might get a good live price on Manel Kape. You don't want to be laying minus 400 on minus 300 on Manel Kape, and now he's on bottom, and now he's lost round 1 either because he gave it away or because he couldn't get up from bottom, and now he has to win the later rounds, right? Both of these guys have not gone past round number 3. The cardio is a concern for both. I don't really know. Like
Asu has a 5-round regional fight.
Okay. I think his cardio is fine, and I think that Manel Kape could actually drain his cardio if he's actually struggling to get up from bottom, because the control is so good from on top from Asu. If Manel Kape's like fighting everything, he's using all power trying to get up, I could see Manel Kape the one slowing down, and it's not Asu trying to grab the takedowns and stuff, right? So I like Asu here. I have him at plus 275 though. The numbers moved quite a bit. I have 2 units on that.
Plus 170 now.
Yeah, I got it earlier because I watched some of this tape, and so I want to highlight some of the. If you take a look at his odds when he normally fights, right? Let me just pull it up. He was minus 235 against Nicolau, minus 425 against Jose Johnson, minus 555 against Carlos Vergara, minus 210 against Ode Osborne. We're getting him plus 275 now. Like, you're used to laying the juice, like a lot of juice, and now you're getting a big price tag. I think it's going to be more competitive than plus 275. I get the rationale on Kape. I think he's explosive. I think it's just a bad matchup based on what Kape wants to do, based on what Asu wants to do. I think Asu's going to get this takedown and ride at least 1 or 2 rounds of control time. I don't know if he finishes him on the ground, so Asu decision is probably where I'll pick. Thinking that he can go 5 rounds, and Manel Kape just has to land a big shot. So it's more of a puncher's chance for Manel Kape on the way in or on entry, maybe like an uppercut on the entry. But that's he's not going to stand at range with Asu, right? Like Asu's not going to sit in the pocket and exchange. He's going to have to defend the takedown and then land big shots. And that's not technically what Manel Kape does. So I like the value on the underdog. I'll play it and then maybe look to hedge off live if I get a takedown round 1.
I don't hate it at all, man. I totally understand. I'm an Asu believer myself, and I have been one of the people parlaying him up and using him up until this point in his UFC run here. So I see the upside. I totally get it. It is worth noting that Manel Kape has been submitted twice. Now, one of those was Kyoji Horiguchi, but it was in round 3. So it was in a fight that got extended where he got worn out and tired by a grappler. So there is definitely an upside here for a late submission. There's definitely upside here for control from Asu. And I will tell you guys, very much like Andrea Lee, I'm swearing off the chalk on Manel Kape because I've had too many experiences where I'm screaming, Kape, do something. Like it's happened too many times where I'm screaming at the TV for this guy to do something, anything, because it's a close round and we've traded a couple of kicks and your opponent has a minute and a half of control time and you think you got it in the bag because you look cool. I'm sick of losing money that way. So I am going to be passing, even though I'm picking Manel Kape to win. I wish everybody good luck on the Asu Almabayev plays. I love that kid. I hope he does well. I hope he cashes those dog tickets for you. And maybe I can find an angle to get in on this somewhere live as the fight continues. But I want to watch this one play out and see what happens. Art, my man, thank you so much for spending the time. I appreciate you coming on the show and breaking all these fights down here with me. Everybody, again, Mr. Electrocute, Art is awesome. You guys heard it right here. He dissects these fights. It's very surgical the way he approaches it. I love the way he operates. My guy, now is your time. The floor is yours. Let the people know where they can support you and what other content you might have coming up.
Thank you so much, Clint, for having me. It's an honor to be here, right? And just I have a different way of approaching fights. Like I when I'm looking at a fight, I want to look at what this fighter wants to do and if he can actually do it, what the game plan is. I try to think behind the ears and can he implement his game plan or is he going to be uncomfortable here? So, and I back that up here. I'm part of Fighting Stats. If you haven't heard about Fighting Stats, we have a group of guys that work around the clock that actually collect UFC stats for me. They give me the information about these kicking rates, the time inside control, the number of times they throw jabs. It is a game changer when I'm trying to beat the books. The books don't have this. The casinos in Vegas are talking to me about trying to get these stats. They don't have this. So it gives me a huge edge over them, especially with takedowns, significant strike props. I can see like certain, guys tend to fade into the loaded rounds, right? So we have all that. I'm paying out of my bankroll to try to support these guys to try to get that stats. The goal is to eventually get a complete database. And what I'm doing right now is actually I created a chat bot. It's available on our website, fightingstats.com. Go check that out. If you ever wanted, say, for example, Clint, how many head strikes were landed against Alex Pereira against Jamal Hill? It will be able to spill that out for you in a matter of seconds. You don't have to go look it up. How many takedowns were defended by George St. Pierre against Matt Serra? You would have to look that up. This chatbot has filled with all of our database, all of our UFC database. All of those stats are available. You can just ask the question. We are working out kinks. We are trying to put all of our data in there. So it's very new, but I'm very excited. It's going to help me a lot in my breakdown where I can just type in these questions. How many kicks did he throw in this actual fight? And it'll tell you how many kicks they throw, what type of kicks, things like that. It is a game changer. Nobody else has this type of information. So come support us, fightingstats.com. You can find me there. I post everything over to our Patreon channel, patreon.com/fightingstats. Just help with us by liking, sharing, letting people know if you like this quality content. Just let me know because I'm always about this long, detailed breakdowns. If you like those type of details, just pay attention, I guess. So thanks for having me on, Clint. I really appreciate it. And hopefully everybody found some useful information.
Absolutely. And that's what we're about. You guys know that. We're trying to make sure you've got all the info you need so that you can make good bets on the next UFC card. Let's get out there and let's have a good weekend, you guys. No bets for me at this point. Very tempted on a couple of these dogs here. I think my guy might have talked me into a Montana De La Rosa play over there. So trying to keep my hands off of KGV Lee. Not sure if we'll be able to do it. I really like Chepe Mariscal. Going to have to decide whether or not I want to go full anchor this week. Possibilities are endless for UFC Vegas 103. Thank you guys for being here. Total Takedown and undefeated post-weigh-in show later on in the week. As always, thank you. Shout out to my guest, Art, Mr. Electrocute. You guys be good. Have a great week. Come on back here for the rest of the shows. Let's make some money this week. Let's roll.